Anybody got a copy of it? It was sent out on the message, wasn't it? Okay. A couple things before we get started. I'd like to ask our resident minister, Mr. Al Williams, to ask the blessing.
Seldom. Let us pray for the chairman.
And before we get started, we have one organization that has another meeting a couple hours away, so I'm going to adjust the schedule and let them go first. So if the Driver's Safety Commission. Feel free to talk about whatever you want. This is an open forum, and I know that most of you work in the executive branch, and I mean, what we're working off of here is the governor's recommendations. So,
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and
hang on
members
just
of
a
the
minute.
committee.
This is our first meeting of the year, and you know, last year and the previous years, this committee did not only public safety, but it did the judiciary too. So we got split, and some people went that way, and others stayed here. But we have a couple new members. Mr. Lim down here on the end. You want to say anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't delay us. I'm just happy to be on this committee and looking forward to seeing the meat being made.
He's a lawyer, so be careful with him. And Lauren McDonald, one of the governor's floor leaders.
Lauren McDonald, just glad to be part of the Public Safety Committee and Public Safety Appropriations Committee.
And my executive assistant, administrative assistant, is new to me this year, Sarah. So. I've got a good reputation, it seems. So go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's good to see you all. Thank you for your time today as we discuss the Georgia Drivers Education Commission, beginning on line 39.12. You'll see an increase in $522,000. Each year, the Joshua's Law collections are estimated in the big budget and then trued up in the amended budget. The actual collections exceeded the estimated collections by $522,000, and that's what those funds reflect. This will enable the commission to award an extra 1,300 scholarships this year. In fiscal year 24, we awarded 4,842 scholarships. And this year we anticipate awarding approximately 6,200 scholarships, so that is certainly a step in the right direction.
One and a half.
Yes, sir. It is. It's back at 3%.
Okay.
And
So
we're starting to see.
and why we have so many more scholarships then.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
I didn't call you yet.
Okay.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. He used to work for me,
Thank you, Colonel. I appreciate it.
and I use the word work politely.
I worked hard, didn't I?
Oh.
Colonel, thank you and the committee, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to present today. Today I'm going to be brief.
He's the director of the office, the governor's office of highway safety. I'm sorry.
I'm going to be very brief. I just want to bring to your attention on the track sheet
$39.11.
Hello. All right, so I'm going to talk about line 39.11.2. What happened here? Government closed down one of the funding sources, otherwise known as CP, and several of the employees were paid through CP. So when that was closed down, we had to reallocate or move them to another funding source, and 3 of them had to fall under PNA, which is our state-funded funding source. So as a result, we were the $161,917 would help us make up those salaries. Any questions?
Didn't the federal government cut some of your money? The grant?
All the CP, that particular fund source. So we couldn't put anything in that fund source. No personnel, no expenses, anything like that. That was cut everywhere. It was cut everywhere. So
And it went half to half, didn't it?
what's that?
Didn't it go a half to half?
No, PNA goes half and half. The one
Okay.
that's the state-funded one, it's still alive and it goes half and half.
Okay.
So when they award the 161, there's going to be 161 coming from the feds too.
Okay. Any questions? Any committee members? Number 15.
I'm 15. What are these 3 employees? What do they do?
So one of them is the way they have to be allocated is by their position. So they can't be, if they touch every member of the agency, then they have to fall under PNA. So we have a compliance officer, we have the IT, the system admin, and then we have our business support lady that runs the front desk and is pretty much the office manager. So she's involved with every single person, not particularly one area.
So are all 3 of these, are they necessary personnel?
Yes, sir.
Is that a yes?
Yes. Sorry, I thought you heard him.
Is that all? Number 4.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to clarify, I know in the amended budget, we are very adverse to creating new positions. So just to clarify, this is a change that's having to be made because of a change in the federal funding. These are not actually new positions,
Right.
correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Just wanted to make that clarification.
Thank you.
Number 11.
I'm not going to say what the Reverend here said CP stands for. P's and P&A's, could you at least tell us what that is? 'Cause
Sorry.
you don't want to know what he said. So if you can help the new members what CP means and
CP
everybody from now on today. So.
Sure, sorry. It's gone now, but CP used to mean community program. So planning and admin, which is like your executive level, that's who usually is paid by the planning and admin P&A funds.
I didn't ask the question that was so obvious.
Mr. Chairman,
Sometimes
Mr.
you're
Chairman.
pretty obvious too.
I'd just like to say one $50,000 around that range, but in return, we receive almost $21 million from the feds. And if the state would appropriate a little bit more, what we leave on the table, we leave about 1.2 million on the table, and we could up that 21 million, probably about $1.2 million, so that would help us with additional programs that we can't fund because of the lack of funding.
What's the match breakdown?
Well, it's a dollar for dollar
Okay.
is what we receive now.
It's $1 for $1, but
But we leaving like 1.2 on the table.
No, if y'all get 1 million, state.
It used to be 15%, it went up to 18% now for your 402 funds, and our funds are like CP, PNA, that particular bucket of money, you can get up to 18% of that number. So if that number is, say, 15,000, you can get 18% from the state, and they'll match it so that you could do other programs under 402.
Okay, I'm totally good.
I need a pie chart, I think.
Thank
Okay.
you, sir.
Thank you. Back to the regular agenda, the Georgia Public Safety Training Center. We strictly go by the tracking sheet, so if you've got the book, it's a little bit more difficult for everybody to keep. I hope everybody's using the tracking sheet. Yeah, okay.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Cheryl Greathouse with the Training Center. Director Wigginton is continuing his recovery and regrets he's not able to be with us today, but he's certainly involved. I had 4 different calls from him on the way up here today, so he just can't attend in person yet. For us, we're looking at line 39.10.1, provide funds for additional training for jailers. This is directly related to a piece of legislation that passed last year under Senate Bill 37. This is training funds for 2 additional training instructors and supplies, again due to the increase in the basic law $96. And then 39.10.3 is a reduction of funds for rent at the, that's $9,912.
Okay, the Pickens Academy is the Northwest Training Center, is that correct?
It is actually North Central, but we've had to move. They basically asked us to leave the building because they were getting ready to sell it. So we have moved temporarily into a classroom being provided by Alpharetta PD. But we are on the hunt for another location so that we can get into very small as to what we can do in that. We also have an academy in Rome and an academy in Athens.
And I know Post may get into it too, but would you about the new Post standard for basic mandate? The increase in hours and.
Yes, sir. The hours went from 408 hours to 810 hours. The post-curriculum committee put forth topics and hours and along with objectives. And so we're in the process across the state at our academies and the other academies of implementing it at this time. It's turned out to be lecture and scenario-based training. It's a 20-week program, which holistically on the system that gets one. We implemented courses across the state on January 6th. I'm not sure what the other academies are doing, but we're actively running sessions at each of our academies.
Well, I'm glad to see the further training, but, you know, I'm besieged all the time here recently by people that want to add additional hours, and usually it's groups, and they're, center, but I never see it show up on the tracking sheet, and everybody's asking for money, but I like to have some knowledge of what's really going on before we intervene without,
as well.
so you don't
people
have
saying that-
anybody,
People saying that we've agreed to things, we're not asking for programs. We only have
Okay.
what we officially ask
Okay.
for. We'll support the program if it is chosen by the legislature to be something they want to fund and have us do, but we're not actively asking for that.
okay. Any questions? Number 4?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The additional funding that you're asking for the 2 training instructors and correct?
Yes.
Okay. They're not currently existing. It's not,
No, ma'am, when we asked for the positions last year, feel like after evaluating what they have passed and what we're trying to implement, that 2 more positions would help us be able to meet the demand.
okay. All right. But they are 2 new positions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
And that more than doubles the amount of hours that,
Yes, sir.
you're gonna have to, what, you and I know in the regional academies, they're not in residence typically, are they?
No, sir.
But are they in residence at Public Safety Training Center?
Yes, sir, they are. And matter of fact, we actually are running, we're planning to run, we didn't have as many this time, but more times than not, we actually run 2 separate courses at Gypstick at one time because people come there because of the opportunity to be in resident.
Are you gonna have sufficient dormitory space with all these people coming?
Honestly, sir, I think that's gonna become a problem that we're gonna have to address in the very near future. Was already tight. We went from, just to give you a quick example of when Director Wigington got there in 2014, we were teaching 70,000 students a year. Now, that was all types of students, including online. Last year, it was 264,000 students, also including online, but a lot have increased in our on-campus training as well as a few initiatives of delivering training to the locals where they live and work.
I expect scheduling has become a problem too, when you have venues that you can only schedule one group at a time, and you,
It takes a very tight protocol. We have a strong policy about the order of priority, who gets what first and in what order, but it is quite the challenge to try to meet everybody's needs. But it's been truly helpful to us over the last few years as you all have funded additional firing ranges and things of that nature to help us meet the demand. But the new mandate is taxing our existing facilities significantly.
but you're not asking for anything today?
Not today.
Number 12?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Clarify for me, please. 3910.2, you've got 2 training instructors. Tell me a little bit about the supplies, how that's broken out. That must be an awful lot of supplies. $316,000.
Yes, sir. The salary for that, of the 2 positions, salary and benefits comes to 117 of that. And so the rest of that is accounted for. The cost are computer costs and licensing the software and other employment-related costs such as speed detection and supplies, other types of medic workshops that we're being asked to put on, triple T added, and that's gonna have some significant supply costs to us. We weren't expecting that to be added. Travel and per diem for them. We have 3 off-site locations we call satellites that sometimes, if with the Tifton Academy, we run a class down in Bainbridge, we have to send instructors to support that, and that requires them to have things all come together to equal the expense of, is that right? I can hardly see it with my glasses.
It'd be like, just under 200,000.
Just under 200,000.
Okay.
The 112 got moved to 26 capital bonds.
Well, I guess the instructors are not complaining about the cost of eggs. Thank you.
Where do the food costs come in? If you're gonna have that many more people down there, who pays for that?
The food cost?
That's self-funded, so as individuals eat there, the money goes right back into their budget. It pays for the salaries for the cafeteria workers as well as all the food.
So they
But it's
pay,
not state
they
funded.
pay on site when they eat.
Yes, sir. That changed in 2008-ish.
8, 9 during the recession, all the funding for the cafeteria was cut.
Do they go up, are they allowed off campus or
Yes, sir. Well, depends
the
on the
basic
class.
schools? I mean, I'm-
Our basic schools are, at a certain point, much like, some others, but all the advanced specialized are allowed to go off campus. The biggest trick these days is getting the number of students we have in. We've had to create a schedule where they have to be there at a certain time so we can manage the flow, but we're putting 10,000 meals a week out of the cafeteria.
okay. Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Department of Law.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Travis Johnson with the Attorney General's Office, and with me today I've got Wright Banks, who's our Chief Deputy Attorney General. And we are here to present our amended 25 budget for the law program in section 33, line 33.1.1. There's an increase in funds for Georgia Building Authority rent due to relocation and renovation of the law building. The amount for that, $790,286. As you probably know, we recently, with y'all's support, completed our renovation of the law building next door. We have now moved into that, and with kind of the shuffling of our office space here on Capitol Hill, we now have increased our net square to reflect that increase for the final 3 quarters of the current fiscal year. 33.1.2 is to provide funds for 6 positions to Augusta regions effective April 1st. Thank you to this committee's support, as well as the First Lady and the Governor. We have a human trafficking secured 54 criminal convictions. We have actively participated in 330 case investigations and assisted and rescued nearly 200 children. So we're really proud of this human trafficking unit that we have. We're largely focused and located in the Atlanta area, focused on Metro Atlanta. We have prosecuted cases outside of the Metro Atlanta area, but that requires some traveling and some logistics. So the request of the committee here is to expand our presence into the Augusta region and the Macon region by funding 1 prosecutor and 2 investigators in Macon and 1 prosecutor and 2 investigators in the Augusta region. So those are the 2 items that I have for your consideration and ask for your favorable consideration.
Well, you probably know, but I'm from Savannah, and I keep track of what you do, and I'm very proud of the record. Y'all have done made a substantial difference in our state. But do you have somebody in Savannah?
We don't have any dedicated human trafficking prosecutors or personnel dedicated to Savannah. In the big budget, we have, in the governor's recommendation, some dedicated resources in the gang prosecution unit that would serve the Savannah area. But as of now, we're centrally located in Metro Atlanta area, and then the proposal here would be for these 2 regions. But certainly could, partner with those in Savannah, if, however we can.
You know, typically, we don't fund new positions in the, in this budget, just
Sure.
the regular budget, but,
Sure.
certainly you're welcome to ask, and, it's topic for conversation.
Okay,
And
and-
I see the need.
Sure.
I mean, it's just, how the money works out, you know how that works.
Certainly. And I think the idea would be if there is an exception to that, then we could get started and going April 1 with identifying candidates and hiring for those positions, but certainly understand the position.
And I guess I'm falling back on having to deal with the judiciary, but what's the pay for those positions?
The prosecutors, I believe it's the salary is $95,000 for those two prosecutors. The salary for the
Thank you, Chairman. The two areas that you want to expand into, any data showing why and where on that?
proximity to the interstate network and our major interstate highways. But from a data perspective, we do have some data that we can share with. Basically, it's referral data from CSEC and then the Georgia that show suspected reports of human trafficking, and they tend to be highest. We see those reports being the highest outside of Atlanta.
$7,000, or is that a match?
So that would be, if it was funded, that would just be for the fourth quarter of the. I can ask for the full amount for the full fiscal year in 26.
Okay,
in the
I
big
thought
budget.
you were.
Part-time.
Part-time.
Any other questions? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Department of Community Supervision.
Recommend or recognizing that everything works towards that, and I also want to take an opportunity to thank the 2,000 men and women of Department of Community Supervision. We have the highest caseloads in the nation, but we also have one of the highest success rates in the nation, and I never want to miss an opportunity to tout their success and hard work. 18.2.1 is specifically what we're talking about. We're looking at this for amended year of 100,000. Increase our funds for Milledgeville office lease. This was a location that we previously was in the Arnold building with Georgia Department of Corrections paying a $1 lease. That location has been demolished. It was basically a depreciated asset. And so we needed to find a location. We have found the location. We are actually in the location. There is a clarification. I believe on your sheet it may reference a day reporting center, and that is incorrect. This is a circuit field office. Second largest field office by geographic mileage, but it's our largest because it also encompasses 8 counties in the Okmulgee Judicial Circuit. So with that, I would ask your favorable consideration in the Milledgeville office. Again, this is $109,338 right now, and of course for fiscal year it will be $133,000.
How many offices do you have now? I know you closed most of them and made the vehicles
Yes, sir.
the office for the
Yes, sir.
majority of your personnel, but
Thank you, sir. We have 52 offices. There are 52 judicial circuits in the state of Georgia, and we have a footprint in each judicial circuit. Prior to that, you may remember we were up as high as 120 field offices at one time.
What's the morale issue with being in the car all day long, every day?
They love it, and I'll tell you why, because they know that to do their job, they've got to be out in the field. We've always said community supervision is done in the community. It's not done in a building. They still have opportunity to go into the office, but you know, I've always heard in the business community one of the worst things you can do is give a salesman an office because that's where they'll spend their time. But no, they have no problem with it. They're engaged in the community, they're out and about in the community, and it also gives them a much better opportunity to work closely with law enforcement within that community and treatment providers.
Do they have day offices around, or where they can, in close proximity to where they work, where they can go in and do paperwork?
They do, yes, sir, and then absolutely.
And now they all ride double, don't they?
No, sir.
Oh,
No, sir.
Wasn't that something you started a couple of years ago?
Well, it wasn't riding double. We ride one to a car unless there's a need to ride two. Our fleet is based on the ratio of one car for two officers. That doesn't mean they share them. In fact, it was asked if it'd be good to have one car per officer, and I'd shared with you, I don't think that's a good fiscal thing to do, because they would not get the utilization that they should be getting. So it's one vehicle for two officers on a ratio, but officers supervise single.
Well, when one of your parole officers visits somebody who is has a high probability of being violent,
that
prison
precludes that. That's correct. There's a anytime you're going into a dangerous situation, quite honestly, we've been in places that some police departments won't go into. But yes, if the situation calls for it, we will ride two officers. That's a loaded question there.
Well,
Colonel.
it's a common.
Wait a minute, Olivia told me this is where I say baby needs new shoes. No, I will tell you, and this speaks directly to the legislature and what you did for law enforcement, specifically for us and state employment, and I will share these numbers. Sworn staff prior to those enhancements, the turnover was 15.8. Right now it is 4.8. We've seen a 7% reduction in turnover, so thank you. Non-sworn staff, it was 19.8%. It's a 33% reduction. When you take non-sworn and sworn, it was at 15%. It's now 7.1%, and it's that's a 57% reduction. I would like to think it's great leadership, but truth of the matter is, they're being compensated, and because of the legislature and certainly Governor Kemp, the work that they do in our communities is recognized, and the value that they play is certainly recognized.
Well, that's great to hear, because I ask that question a lot, because retention in some public safety organizations really isn't very good, and
Yes, sir.
it's very problematic. And I'm glad to hear that you've had positive experiences as a result of some of them.
Very appreciative. That doesn't mean it doesn't have challenges.
You think we're paying them too much, or?
No, sir. No, sir. No. That's no, N-O. Just for the record, but we are appreciative. We really are.
Well, we appreciate the job you do. Number 12.
Yes, sir. What's the pay of a sworn officer?
A sworn officer pay right now, entry salary is $55,082.98. And if you give us a position, I'll cover that 98 cents. That's just
Over the last 3 years or 5 years, what has that gone from to what it is now? What was it before?
it hovered. It was at, I would say, when it was still decent, it was like at 38,000. And then it seemed to expand from that naturally. I don't know the specific years, Representative Williams, but it's grown, it's commensurate, I believe, with the duties that they do, without a doubt.
Doesn't it require a college degree?
It does require a 4-year college degree entry. And I will say part of the retention and turnover, I'll credit our recruitment retention team. Long ago, quite candidly, we didn't really have to have a recruitment team. And I'm sure there's many law enforcement agencies that didn't, but the times have changed. And they've had a huge impact on not just who they're bringing to our profession, but bringing the right people for the right reason that stay in this profession.
What's the ratio to
Right now, we're about one officer to
Right, to-
we're at about 1 to 100. That's still too high. Again, I'm not here to cry. We do lead the nation in the number. Not only that, we lead the nation in the length of time. And what I mean by that is we had that period of COVID where the courts were shut down. There weren't people coming. Large of a pool, so that's one thing, and the courts are cranking back up. So challenge and strategy for us to deal with that management while we're carrying out our mission.
Well, I trained her. That's why.
I know, and I wish you wouldn't have said that, because now, no, I did. I shared your kind words with her at the biennial, but I couldn't ask for.
Not what she told me.
Quick question,
right.
Mr. Chairman.
Number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't after 3 years, there's kind of like an automatic termination?
That's correct.
So, you know, in other words, if somebody were to get sentenced, say, to 20 years, after 3 years, they are terminated, correct?
That is correct. If they meet certain conditions as set by the legislature.
Mm-hmm.
And Representative Ballinger, I think one of the things when that was first enacted, you had a large pool of folks. And literally within a month, we were able to rid about, if I recall correctly, about 21,000 cases. Well, now that they're here, it's going to be another 3 years before we even see those that start to trickle off. If that makes sense.
Yes. And how long do you actively supervise somebody? Say if they were to get, 5 years probation or 10 years probation for, say, possession of meth.
Yeah. Until the court tells us not to or the law tells us not to. And as long as those needs are there, we do put them in administrative status. And I think that may be what you're talking about is we may not terminate them, but we don't actively pursue and see them.
Okay.
They may not have an active case plan. Those are what we call administrative cases. They're still subject to the terms and conditions, but we don't actively see them.
Yeah. So in other words, if we'll say I have 200 cases and I have, maybe 150, 200 of those are just on an admin kind of whatever. I don't have to see them. I don't have to look at them unless there is some sort of violation or something comes up. I don't deal with them. I don't think about them. Nothing.
Right, but we don't calculate those into the ratio that the chairman had asked about. Admin cases are not calculated in that 1 to 100. This 1 to 100 are folks that we're going out, knocking on the door, talking to employers, talking to treatment providers, talking to mama, daddy, and everybody else. These are not the admin folks.
Yeah. And are you including contacts with, say, other associated people, like, drug treatment providers, or, whenever they go in to get a drug test or something like that? Is that also included as a contact for the
Yes,
department?
there are different contact requirements for their risk level that is validated on our population, and we call those collateral contacts. So if we make contact with a treatment provider to follow up, some of these people will not be truthful. I don't know if you believe that or not, but when we verify
Okay.
those are in along with face-to-face contacts.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you drug
Those individuals in there have a chronic substance abuse problem, and we test them anywhere 2 to 4 times a week.
And I wonder, just for my own interest, these guys and girls nowadays too, that spend a long time in prison, that have drug problems as they go in. Do you find that maybe they don't have as serious a drug problem when they get out, or they because they obviously dry out when they're in prison, or do they go right back to it?
I wish Commissioner Oliver was here right now.
We got him a little later.
Yeah, well, no. Corrections does a great job on the treatment aspect, and you still got to recognize if you put them back in that same sandbox, they're probably going to go to the same habits. And most of the time what we find, Chairman, is it's not necessarily the substance abuse per se. A lot of times it's a dual diagnosis of mental health, that the substance abuse is what they use to cope with their mental illness. So with that, we still have treatment programs available for them in the community and in-house once that need is identified. Don't get me wrong, there's some that age out and they come out doing fine, and they do very, very well. And there's some that, unfortunately, when they come out, they've been in there so long, they don't have anybody. They don't have family members. I mean, they show up, and that's what that and a bag of clothes.
And end up on the street.
Sometimes they do, unfortunately, but that's our goal, to assist them where they don't.
Okay, I don't want to belabor this. We got a lot to go through, but I appreciate your answering all the questions.
Yes, sir.
I doubt you came prepared for it when you only had one item on there that you're asking for. So
that's okay, sir.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Doing a good job. I appreciate it. GBI. Can't even read, can I?
Sorry. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Chris Hosey, Director, Georgia Bureau of Investigation, and I'm joined here today with our CFO, Ms. Connie Buck, our Assistant Director, Scott Dutton, sitting there on the first row. First off, I'll start with Administration 30.1.1 is $29,472 to increase funds. Setup and installation will be $41,165. We're only asking for the $29,472. An adjustment to statewide security contracts that we have through the Department of Administrative Services. those rates, and those rates have increased over the past several years. It has increased 18% since FY '22, and this is for on our equipment that was previously under warranty, but is also needing to be added. Maintaining these service contracts helps with our backlog within the crime lab, that instrumentation times when we have service calls on instrumentation, and they also typically provide unlimited parts for any repairs that need to be made on instruments. What it also does is it increases our capacity in our chemistry section at our central crime lab in Macon. Again, that is for one side. Funds for startup cost for one crime lab assistant manager at our headquarters crime lab. Discipline within the crime lab at about 77% of our backlog overall within it. I did not mention this on the central lab positions in Macon. To help with the span of control. The chemistry section at headquarters has 12 assistant manager currently, 25 staff and 2 assistant managers is what the chemistry section. This funding for those positions would provide additional oversight and mentoring program. Our digital forensic investigators provide highly specialized technical support digital forensic investigators in our intel analyst positions, where we moved them to the field and started embedding them in the work units. We're looking at starting the same process with our digital forensic investigators, is putting them in the work units where they're getting ownership and what's going on. They're easily accessible to the agents and to the cases. And with our DFIs, nearly every criminal investigation that we're coming across has some sort of digital material that needs to be extracted or examined in the investigations that we're coming across again. Again, this proposal funds one-time cost of adding those 2 technical leader positions and the digital forensic investigators for the agency. 30.4.2 provides funds for the startup cost to establish a strategic threat assessment group responsible for addressing threats to public officials, investigating homeland security matters, and partnering with critical infrastructure partners to provide support during major events occurring in this state. The Strategic Threat Assessment Group, or STAG for short, is an expansion of the current GSAC unit, our intel unit, and it would provide two sworn positions to handle increased domestic threats to elected officials, elections, school threats, special events, and even our ports of entry. In 2024, GSAC had 447 threats to life received and processed 166 threat screening encounters. This one-time cost would include agent supplies, equipment, computers, monitors, printers, cell phones, furniture, etc. Like I said, it is an extension of the current GSAC unit. We currently have 4 agents assigned to the GSAC unit. 2 of those are assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force. 1 is assigned at the airport, and 1 is assigned to do nothing but domestic terrorism related type incidents now. These 2 positions that I'm referring to would work in concert with the one that is already doing this work to carry out these jobs that I've mentioned earlier, the threats to elected officials and the threats around the state as well. I give GSAC pretty tall order of work to do. I call them my crystal ball. I ask them to go out and find the threat before it gets to our front door. We feel like we can deal with it better if we can do that and see it coming. I know that's not always going to be the case, but victims. Our grant funds from CJCC are no longer available. They ended in August of this past year. These funds here would cover 10 months of expenses for 3 sworn positions until we can if not, then we'll have to look at alternate ways to fund those 3 positions in our heat unit. And that is all I have for now, sir. Make sure I covered everything.
I have a couple questions. First off, with GSAC, did you follow the FBI and move to co-locate with them when they moved?
Yes, we're located in the same building with them.
They still provide analysts in your office?
They are co-located together, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
These technical leaders, you know, are they advanced digital forensic investigators, not just digital, but for, like, say, a school shooting or something like that? Is that a special group that would be able to do more extensive work, or is that just going to be similar, or does that have anything to do with more than digital?
Is this for the GSAC?
No, this is for
the DFIs?
The DSI.
The DFIs?
For the 2 crime scene technical leaders.
Okay. So the 2 technical leaders for the crime scene program would basically be working with the crime scene coordinator now to oversee the operations of the 32 crime scene specialists across the state to ensure, now also outside of the training and ensuring they have the proper training and equipment, testifying as subject matter experts. The one thing that we want to ensure, that big part that they would be doing, is looking at the work that the crime scene specialists are doing, ensuring their training is all the same, but also that they're reporting and how they are processing scenes and even evidence to that matter is consistent across the state.
I just thought, you know, after the school shooting in Georgia, that I can't imagine the crime scene investigation that went into that. You know, I've never heard a negative response. We all must have done a great job, and it certainly was. The whole country was looking at it, and all the pundits that find fault with things like that didn't say anything. So I appreciate the job they did.
Well, our crime scene coordinator was there. We brought him up, and then I know 2 or 3 of our more seasoned crime scene specialists were there. So there was a lot of that oversight going on in a crime scene that took over 2.5 days to process. And talk about dedication. They were dedicated to get the job done because we basically had to make them go home.
Any questions? Can't believe that. I guess I'll
Go
have
before somebody changes their mind.
you know, no questions, and then I ended up answering about 20 of them, so. How about, you know, I'm from Savannah, as I said, for autopsies, or have we found one yet?
So we have one in Pooler now.
Okay.
We have a part-time in Pooler, and then we are still doing on
come into fruition too, and doing a good job, because you know, and everybody in here knows, if the crime lab doesn't work, the criminal justice system just collapses, and it's an essential part of what we do in this state. Appreciated that fact, and we've tried to provide sufficient positions and there are about 1,000 open positions in this country for those people, and there are only about 500 in the country. So sometimes the state salary for that kind of thing is not equivalent to bring a lot of.
We're competitive, I believe.
Okay.
We're at 15 doctors now, still 4 vacancies. I am very hopeful that by the end of this year, we will be at 17 doctors. Possibly through it. They're even working through the weekends at times to catch those up.
And I know you get a variety, but you know, I took a group from when I was the chairman of Public Safety and Homeland Security. I took a group over there, and I think they were astonished when they went and watched the autopsy. Not about the autopsy, but the fact that I think they had like 5 of them on the table, and 4. Significant it was.
I would venture to say so. It's a variety, obviously.
Okay, we got some questions now. Number 9.
I knew we'd get there.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and I know I'm not on the committee, but I do have a couple of questions. If you could just fill me in on how many different places around the state that do and the length of time that it takes to get results back. And so I was just wondering how many different areas around the state, and you know, I know money is about everything. If we had plenty of money, we could fix to get results back, and families are, you know, waiting for those results, and we can't move forward with whatever the DAs and all need to start the prosecution and all that. So can you I'm new, so just bring me up to speed just a little bit.
So we have, we conduct autopsies at headquarters, obviously, and then Pooler and Macon. Years back, we did in Augusta as well, funding and loss of doctors. That is something that myself and the assistant director, we monitor that pretty much every day. It is a lot better on the turnaround time, but I will say that the majority of the times that where there is a delay, the delay lies in toxicology. And even with toxicology, if there is no backlog, and tox is not our largest backlog by any means, you're still looking at around 4 to 6 weeks on a normal time frame to get that done. There are times, obviously, when some needs to be expedited, when we can expedite regardless of across the disciplines for need for prosecution or whatever the case may be, we're doing that. And we've been successful in being able to do that, regardless of any backlog.
Wow. I know it's a big job and it's a lot, and I know everybody gets caught up on CSI on TV, and it takes about 15 minutes and we can get it done. I understand that, and I appreciate the efforts that are being made, but you know, whatever and however we can do that to speed up the process, I think that's something that all of the citizens and constituents would certainly welcome.
Well, I'll tell you, we're doing some deep dives into our backlog. I said earlier that chemistry is obviously the largest one. It's drug chemistry. Everything changes, whether it's technology or whatever the case may be, sometimes requiring a little bit more time. But we're doing some deep dives into that. We're doing some thinking outside the box and so forth, see how we can address that and alleviate some of that problem.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Number 12.
Thank you, Director. The problem with that backlog has hung around a long time. Been hearing it a lot, and glad to know that you're approaching it and hitting it and trying to reduce it. It's very important, especially, like the Representative said, when family members are waiting on results. It can be quite an ordeal. But I did want to recommend, while you do an excellent job, and it's good to have you, you got some folk that we talk to every day in the halls that do a great job, and after I eat lunch, they're a lot easier to look at than you, so you ought to move them up on that front row, you know. Just thought I'd mention it.
I didn't say I was pretty.
I didn't say you were ugly either.
Vice Chairman.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I just got a quick question. I'm gonna sound like the Colonel just a little bit. I've been in the coroner business for about 40 years and funeral business over 50. So I've dealt with crime lab from we had some autopsies that were being done that were not crime related.
I am not familiar. I may have to get a more accurate answer on that for you, but
I think it was ended, but autopsy results, I think that ended, but they were doing some outside.
there's still protocol. Witnessed deaths outside of 60 days of a doctor's care.
Mm-hmm.
We do some on potentially, especially with young people.
But for no other entity or
Not that I can think of off the top of my head right now. Maybe in
that GBI may get involved with some of those, but then I think there was a prearranged.
At one time, we were doing some autopsies for some organ harvesting. Death investigations and,
Yeah.
but we're not doing that.
I know that there's an arrangement or a protocol set up as it relates to the medical examiners and organ
Yeah.
transplant harvesting. Typically, that takes place at the medical before they come to us.
So, yeah,
So, but I know there's a process for that. But I'm not sure of the arrangement.
okay,
If it's a MOU. They're going back to that's
Yeah.
the medical facility, not the
I got you. Well, I just wanted to make sure, because, you know, everybody's alluded to the, you know, the backlog.
Right.
And then we couldn't hire people. So I just want to make sure that we're looking after the medical examiner folks up here in the bigger counties doing their own, and then we have the one entity there. But doing anything outside would cause us another backlog. And how you expedite, you know, analysis and that sort of thing was a problem at one time in this state. But I just want to make sure we're just doing what we're supposed to be doing on the criminal side.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay, that's a good answer. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Number 11.
Thank you, Director Hosey. Just to kind of, this may be more of a Nelly type question, but you know, at our lowest, just 2 years ago, when the governor made his investment in the medical examiner system with over $100,000, almost $1 million, I guess, you know, trying to hire more MEs. What was the lowest we got down to? I think, didn't we get down to about 9 or 8?
Yeah.
7. Okay,
Yeah.
7 2 years ago. And to be back up at 15 now, that shows the commitment that the GBI, the governor's office, and the appropriations process invested in, and that's huge to explain to this committee, because I mean that was a problem that we all get, and as legislators, as coroners, etc. And kind of to go to Representative Richardson's kind of comment, a lot of people don't realize, they look at the death rate and like, oh, that many people died, why aren't we getting our results back? The testing process of toxicology and histology, it's for everything that goes on in our state, from each municipality to sheriff's office to state patrol. So all that backlog, and then you put the death on top of that. And of course, what we're doing here, we have to come up with a balanced budget in Georgia. Federal government doesn't. So we invest in these scientists, and all of a sudden Uncle Sam's up there just plucking them from us, taking them to a federal job where they can pay more, because they don't, they just print money. They don't have to balance it. So that's important for people to know when your constituents call you. That's a problem we've always had, is somebody's got a big money pot out there that they suck it out of Georgia. But fortunately, with the investment that we've made in the medical examiner system, you can see a change going from 7 to 15 in just 2 years. That's huge.
Thank you.
And one of the things my analyst just showed me here is right now that the GBI requests for service are less than, we're turning out more than we're getting in requests. So that's very positive turnaround. The other thing I was going to ask about is retention. A couple of years ago, I know the Army was, you were training scientists, they get whatever degrees required to be a scientist in your organization, train them for 18 months. And then they were leaving and going to the federal government for twice the pay and half the work. And is that still problematic?
We're doing better. It's gone from 8.2 to 4.6.
Well, that's pretty good.
And, a lot of that has to do with the support by the legislature and governor for our scientists, our lab techs, and our evidence-receiving techs.
I'm glad to hear that. And my last question is, what about the rape kits? There was a horrific backlog on that when Representative Holcomb passed that bill, and I think, I know we've been working on it and got it down.
I want to say it's right around 300. It's a little over 300. I shouldn't say right around. It's a little over 300.
You know the processing time on one of those once they're received? Or?
It really depends, and I'm not a scientist on it. 379 right now. It really depends on the processing of what needs to be processed. Time frame on it right now,
Yeah.
but I can find out what that is.
Well, we've been trying the last couple of years, and we've made some progress with CJCC and put so that somewhere down the line, the case doesn't get dismissed because something wasn't done right, which is really a serious business for somebody that's been violated like that.
Right.
So
I
we
agree.
appreciate that. And I think that's all the questions we have. Thank you.
For your time.
CJCC. I always think turnabout's fair play. Years ago, I was over there asking for money, and he was over here deciding whether to give it. So,
and if I remember correctly, Mr. Chairman, I was always very kind and polite when you came before our committee.
you were always kind and polite. I'm not sure I got all the money I wanted.
Completely understand that. I think I share with those same.
Oh, I know you do.
I do appreciate the opportunity to come before you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate this committee and all.
30.5.
I appreciate this committee and all the work that you have done. I really feel like that the work of CJCC is very, very complex. We're involved in a lot of different programs, and your interest in us is something that not only I but my team appreciates. Your all's commitment to the work that we do. We only have one ask in the amended budget, and we'll get straight to that. We did provide for you a handout, and I'm happy to discuss anything in that handout that you'd like to discuss while I'm here, but we'll jump right to the tracking sheet. Line 30.5.1, we're asking for $101,076 in the amended budget. Trafficking hotline for the state of Georgia. It is currently supported by nonprofit organizations. The way the hotline operates is when someone calls that end HTGA, they have options to choose from, 1 through 6. 1 goes to the GBI tip line. 2 is if you're calling about minor trafficking. 3 is if the call is referenced in adult sex trafficking. 4 if it's labor trafficking. 6 goes to the National Human Trafficking Hotline. Since August of this year, we have been answering one of those calls because of a situation that developed during the summer with one of our nonprofits. In an effort to establish a more reliable and sustainable hotline, we've had multiple conversations, and we are looking at creating a specialized advocacy unit within CJCC. This unit will focus on addressing all forms of human trafficking and other types of victimization. We currently have an advocate who her primary responsibility is to the GBI's HEAT unit. We make her available anytime they do undercover operation where they anticipate victims will be rescued. She is there with them to provide direct services to those victims. She provides many other services as well. She has been answering since August in addition to her other job responsibilities. We also have victim advocates in the Crime Victims Compensation Program that work specifically for those victims that are trying to get compensation. The victim advocates in that program assist them in getting documentation in. They assist in collecting police reports and other things that are necessary in order for a claim to move forward. What we're asking for with this $101,000 is for us to have a platform that would allow us to expand our involvement with the human trafficking hotline and to do some contract work, to bring in some contract work in advocacy. You will see in the, and we won't talk much about this now, but you'll see in the fiscal year 26 money to expand this on out and annualize what we're trying to do with our victim advocacy unit. We will be looking to hire another victim advocate, and we will cross-train all of these victim advocates to work with the compensation program, to work with all types of victim needs, whether it's human trafficking or sexual assault, domestic violence, whatever that victimization is and whatever the need is. They will, at that point, we will be able to make sure that that hotline is manned 24/7 without just one person having that full responsibility of 24/7 manning of that hotline. That is our only ask. Oh, by the way, a good example this year is the school shooting at Appalachia High. We had victim advocates on the scene there pretty quickly, and then they were there as a part of the recovery center that was open for some time after that shooting. Those are the kind of things that we can do with this victim advocacy unit within CJCC, and we certainly appreciate your consideration for this ad.
Okay, is this money to fund positions, or is it for, and how many calls does CJC actually get from the hotline that doesn't go to some of the other places, or do you know?
It's about 20 calls a month that we're fielding.
But this doesn't have anything to do with the technical part of for the hotline.
So we are fielding just one of those trees. So the call comes in to that platform. We are fielding the adult sex trafficking tree that comes to us. What we're looking to do is develop a platform to where we will be managing this hotline. It'll give us a better opportunity to make sure that the calls that are coming in and are being directed to those nonprofits to ensure that they're being answered, to be sure that the services are being provided. Provides greater accountability and I think more reliability to the hotline.
But the calls will still, some of the calls will go to like the federal hotline or to
Yes.
the GBI or people that are going to take immediate.
There will still be a phone tree
Okay.
that individuals will be able to select from. There will be a couple of those out of that phone tree that will be directed to a different location than they're presently being directed to.
So are you going to have to hire people for this?
We'll have to hire one, or is it one that we're going to hire, and then we're going to do some contract as well with advocates. But it is one new position for an advocate.
Is there any federal grant money, or is it like most of the grants at CJCC? That's on you, huh?
This is on us.
Yeah, okay. Any questions? Okay. Get out of there before they start asking.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Juvenile justice. I'm ready when you are.
All right. Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come before you today to make our request for the AFY 2025 budget. I would turn your attention to 31.1.1, which is to transfer $3 million from our community service program budget to 31.4.1, which is to those funds, that $3 million, would go to our Regional Youth Detention Center program budget. One of the things that you all asked us to do is to develop a strategic plan around recruitment and retention, which with the help of Deloitte we did. And as a result of that, which is kind of how part of the reason why we're making this request, is for our agency turnover rate, we have gone from 43.8% in 2022 to 30.3% in 2024. With our juvenile correction officers, which normally really sets the stage for what we see in our turnover rates. In FY 2022, we had a turnover rate of 97.5%, and in FY 2024, we have that down to 65.6%. In addition, with our vacancy rate, for an agency-wide perspective, in FY 2022, we were at 29.94%, and in FY 2024, we're down to 23.85%. With our JCO series in FY 2022, we were at 43.87%, and in 2024, we were at 32.75%. So as an agency, we're trending in the right direction, but obviously there are still positions and places within our agency that we're looking at monthly because we know that we have work to do. One example of that would be with our teachers. But for this particular request, the other reason why we're making it is because we have momentum going in hiring in our RYDCs, and we have 19 of them. And so we cannot afford to lose the momentum. What we've seen in the past, one of the things that have hurt us, if we offered employment and then we had a long delay in actually bringing the individuals on, then they would just go with other job offers. We've also seen some anomalies in our maintenance with our RYDCs. We've had a couple of situations where we had sewers to collapse. In one, we had to take a kitchen offline and we had to go in and really gut and start over. We had 7 RYDCs that were damaged during Hurricane Helene. We've also had to do a couple of roof replacements as well as repairs. And then we've seen some of the normal of what you will expect in our environment. Everything from HVAC systems, generators, and chillers we've had to replace or we've had to do some work on. Now, the reason why we're asking to move this from our community service budget is because we're projecting a $5.2 million surplus. That surplus is due to vacancies, but we also are still working to really build up residential community beds in our community, especially around young people that may be on the autism spectrum. We have young people that have lower IQs that we need bed placements for. And then we also have those young people, especially between the ages of 12 and 17, that have severe mental and behavioral health needs that really could use the bed space. So as we work with the vendors, a lot of them are having a difficult time hiring professionals that can actually service our young people. So we're continuing to work with them, and we're slowly building that bed capacity. In addition, we also realize we don't want to be in this place where we're having to continue to ask for these one-time transfers. So on the maintenance side, one of the things that we're also going to do is did an assessment of all 25 of our facilities about a year or so ago. So we're going to go back, prepare, and work with them to see what does it really take to maintain 25 facilities so that the conditions are actually it's the conditions, the working conditions. So we also have to make that better for them. So I will pause there. Officers to show up for a shift.
and your facility.
It would have been Catwell, and that would have been a, oh gosh, maybe like 5, 6.
And what about security locks and that kind of thing? Are you still having that like DOC?
So yes, sir. So one of the things that drove us here to ask because sometimes it's not just the locks, the door frames, and then the FY 2026, we have a request.
Because I was astounded in one of the DOC, I was on the study committee for DOC when I heard
It's a good business to be in, I guess. But with your turnover, how do we do that across the board? Because like the chairman said, it's just hard to imagine. Before they go.
Several things that we've had to do. That people were walking out the door because of the environment. So we've had to learn from those lessons. Thank you.
Georgia firefighter standards and training. And after we do this one, we're going to take a quick 5 or 10 minute break. I think some of the people up here need to refresh themselves.
It's pretty simple. We're at 39.8.1 on the tracking sheet. And it looks like on there, if you read that I was specialist, which I cannot hire a safety and compliance specialist for $50,000. So I wanted to clear that up real quick. That's not what I need. You guys and the legislature provided us with 2 additional members last year. We have those hired and on board, and they're doing a great job. We have a total of 12 now in our agency that covers 500. In just the last few months, actually, and I'm actually joined here with Christina Tipton, who is our IT business analyst and does a great job with our agency certainly in one major area that you're going to hear in just a second, but we've gone from roughly 5 125 departments, still covers 3,500 fire stations with approximately 31,000 fire service personnel in the state of Georgia. I have 6 I've increased that by 2. So last year when I was with you, I shared that we had 4 people covering the state. I've split the state now into 6 area, and that's looking at site reviews on the stations, the training records, the trucks and equipment, and make sure that every fire station has what they need to be compliant with our agency rules and regulations, but also to stay safe and keep the community safe. There are still a lot of concerns in the state of Georgia. I'll say this as just a commercial, if you will. I'm already working a little bit with the vice chairman in his area to try to show them better ways to recruit and better ways to get the equipment, and sometimes maybe even the stations, which is not within my purview, but I've been in the fire service. Come May will be 40 years, and so I kind of know a little bit about it. And so I'm going to put some of my staff members with some of his fire chiefs in his area to show them ways that they may could pursue grants and try to grow their fire departments. There's a lot of different areas, but there's also a lot of concerns throughout the state of Georgia when it comes to fire service, especially when you look at areas that are in one area. I will tell you that I'm working with right now, they have 7 stations within their county, and only 2 of them are open because they don't have enough people. And so we're trying to work with Senator Albers actually on some volunteer firefighter initiative programs to get that up and going. I will tell you that I don't mind growing this agency. So as we start tackling some of those other missions that I would like for you to task us with as an agency, I'm happy to do it. I bring, the chairman certainly knows that I'm a 40-year firefighter in my heart and in my career, but I'm also a recovering politician, so I've been on the politician side. No recovery. I'm trying hard, Representative. I'm trying hard.
He used to be the mayor of Warner Robins.
Yeah, I won't go back in that same sandbox, that's for sure, in the vernacular. So we have, because of the legislature and what you've allowed us to do with the ACADIS program, in 2022, we tested only paper testing for all fire service personnel in the state of Georgia. That year, with bubble sheets and Scantron, we tested 2,720 tests that year. Since May, the end of May of 23 until today, we're roughly around 39,000 tests in that amount of time. So we have exponentially increased the number of testing we're doing in the fire service. What we're doing, we're seeing some increase in fire personnel because they're able to get online faster, and we want to continue to do those things. But your citizens are concerned about the consolidation that's taking place and the stations that are having to be closed because they don't have enough fire personnel. I want to help them every way I can because when they close stations, y'all know that has an adverse effect. That too is not in our purview, but we're certainly willing to take on new missions as we move forward. All I'm asking for, plain and simple, large of a mission. So any questions, I'll be glad to.
Well, I'd just like to say director about 22, 25 years ago. And the fire community is certainly a big portion of that.
Yes, sir.
And I was astounded to find out that 70% of the firefighters in Georgia at that time were volunteers.
Yes, sir.
And in the county I live in, that's all we had was volunteers.
Right.
And not every time there was a fire did anybody show up, because if the alarm goes off and people are at work or have something else they're doing, I mean, they just don't make it.
Yes,
and
sir. Paying people, at least some people, so that they have somebody there to respond. Throughout the state. I know there's 159 counties in the state, and I've been to about 94 of them now, just traveling around trying to help fire service throughout the state of Georgia.
And I thought it was a little much to put on him, but our fire chief for the county now is also the emergency management director. And, you know, we just went through the hurricane, and, you know, we had 5 inches of snow last week in Savannah, which never happened. He did a great job with that. So putting a professional on staff really has done us well.
And in your area,
and they're all trained.
I do commend Chatham County for what they did.
That was
in their fire service. That was a big deal.
We've been
for
pushing
Chatham
that.
County. Yes, sir.
The chief down there is and I deal with each other a lot, and he did a great job and a great salesman to get the county to go along with that. And
yes, sir.
so,
That was a big accomplishment.
Yep.
Very proud of that.
And I think it'll be everybody's working together.
Yes, sir.
So, number 12.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm gonna work hard with the chairman because he was gonna take your $50,000. But we're gonna hold him off. Liberty County, my county, went
Yes,
through
sir.
a lot. And we formed a countywide fire department
Yes, sir.
to professionalize it. We had a couple of holdouts. But I'll tell you, the hardest thing in the world is getting a bunch of volunteers. It's like taking candy from a baby. No, I love this candy.
Yes, sir.
They love to buy the red truck and put the red and be seen waving at their neighbors. They tear down the street wide open. And man, don't know how to fight a fire. Doesn't know how to fight Muhammad Ali. But I'm glad to see the professionalism because volunteers did a great job. But there's nothing like full-time professionals that know what they're doing, and it's hard because volunteer fire departments build their own little fiefdom, and they become a political roughhouse, and mayors get terrified to close them down. But having professional people, as high as insurance is now, anything can help. But I've got a new station about 4 miles from my house,
Yes,
and
sir.
I'm so glad.
Yes, sir.
I feel good knowing they're down there because the folk that were closest to me, I didn't know that they would find the house when they took out for a fire. But thank you. I appreciate
And I've certainly
what you
spent a
do.
lot of time in Liberty County over the last 6 months.
So you got some of the cherry wine. You're a very fortunate man.
I didn't get that. But I was at a meeting in Midway there when I was able to walk through the crowd and walk through by the reporters and everything from the Savannah News without them
telling
knowing who I was. That was
Well,
pretty sweet. I
I
like that.
remember the meeting.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you helping Liberty County because they need some help.
Yes, sir. Yes, there's only so much I can do, though, Mr. Chairman.
He always says the water down there tastes like cherry wine. That's what the cherry wine
Yeah,
was.
right.
I've tasted it. Some
Yes,
of
sir.
it tastes like sulfur.
Right.
You get
right.
near that coast.
Some really poorly made cherry.
That's no more questions?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And thanks for what you do.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Let's take a 5 or 10 minute break here and come right back.
Oh, you wouldn't even let us take a break till now. It's been torture.
Well, I know how old you are.
And then you got Danny that slipped out here where I couldn't be.
I think we can got most everybody back, so let's go. Next up is the Georgia Peace Officers Standards and Training Council, better known as POST, and we've got a brand new director. His first time up here. He assistant director, so he's very knowledgeable about the program.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Chris Harvey, and I'm the new director of Georgia Post. To increase funds to provide mandatory training for newly elected sheriffs. That's listed at $246,000. Mr. Terry Norris is here from the Georgia Sheriff's. Just so you're aware, that money is a pass-through through Post. Post doesn't receive any of it. We don't do anything with it. We just simply exist to get it to them. I did want to just make listened with interest earlier when you were talking about the new basic mandate. You know, that was a big project for Post last year.
Yep.
The basic mandate had not been updated since 2006. We worked with, Georgia Post worked with the Georgia Sheriff Association, Georgia Chiefs of Police, the Public Safety Training Center to create, I think, probably one of the most comprehensive basic training peace officers in the nation. We're very proud of it. We're monitoring the first academies that are going now. We don't expect it to be 100% flawless. Just fantastic support throughout the state for that. So we're very proud of that. This or Post in general.
Well, I'm proud of it too, and I think it's probably long overdue. But I shouldn't say this, but I'm old enough. I remember law enforcement before there was Post. And I've said many times, we had some people riding around in police cars with red lights, which they used back then on them, that were more criminally intended than some of the people they were arresting. And Post has made a significant difference, and I appreciate it. I served 12 years on Post Council myself, and I thought it was a very worthwhile endeavor. Over there really told us that we were too hard on people, that they couldn't manage all the appeals that were given to them because of the members, that perhaps we were too tough, that but I think it's moral and do the job as you're supposed to do, and if you can't conform to that, you ought not be out there. And what you do, and congratulations on
thank you,
taking charge. I've read your resume and looked like you're the man for the job. So,
thank you, sir.
Sure. Any questions? Well, you're getting off easy first time.
All right. Thank you.
Sure. I'm trying to decide. You want to come speak? Well, some of our conversations before have hurt your chances, but no, come on.
I would like to update you a little bit on the new class, if you don't mind, sir.
Well, I've got down 324,000, not 325.
Yes,
I
sir,
guess
that was an early number. We are asking for the 325. It is actually a recovery of money we have spent already.
Right.
It has been the policy of the state for a long time not to fund the Sheriff's Elect Academy in the big budget. So we end up having to spend our money and hope that we can get most of it back. The 325 number is actually what we spent. And to clarify things, you all appropriated last year for the Sheriff's Association $599,726. And that is money that we use for the annual cost of training for sheriffs, deputy sheriffs, jailers, and some of the administrative staff. What OPB allowed us to do is go ahead and eat into that money for the Sheriff's Elect Academy, which was $325,000, and we're trying to recover the original. So it's really not new money for us. It's coming in out of the amended budget. And if it's okay, I'd like to just say there were 39 newly elected sheriffs in the state. 4 of those were sitting brand new sheriffs. So I was talking to Chairman Powell earlier. He's got almost half of those, it seems, in his district up there in Northeast Georgia. It was a great class. First time we ever had it at our new headquarters in Madison. If you have not been to see us, we invite you. Thank you for your consideration.
And the truth of the matter is, you're mandated to have this school. They have to go.
Yes, sir.
And somebody's got to pay.
Yes, sir.
And it's a state requirement, you know, and sometimes I get tired that fund those kind of efforts, and I don't know where you get the money.
Well, the code also requires the sheriffs, the newly elected sheriffs, to be paid a salary at the least amount, the salary of the least populated county in the state. So think of these, 19 of these people actually qualified for the salary. The other 20, we did not pay a salary because they were continued to work in a sheriff's office or a police department somewhere. So they were still working and getting paid. So your consideration would be greatly appreciated.
That's included.
All right.
Any
Thank
questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we get down to the meat of it. The reason we scheduled you two last is very obviously these are going to be the longest, and you know, I've sat through about 5 meetings with the Department of Corrections this year on the study committee, and then the first meeting we had about 3 weeks ago, and everybody that reads the papers knows that there's some issues in the Department of Corrections, and the governor has put in the budget some substantial amounts of money to try and correct some of the, and a lot of it is just that we haven't appropriated sufficient money in some areas. I think it's been 35 years since we built a new facility. The locks in some of the prisons don't work, and prisoners get out at night and walk around and create mayhem, and we've got the issues with contraband, and there's just all kinds of issues, and I asked the director to start off.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of this committee, and good afternoon. You know, one of the things we're going to go over, the governor's recommendation for the amended fiscal year 2025. Everything that I'm going to talk about this afternoon in this budget is cascading. Everything was very strategic in working with the Office of Planning and Budget, with the governor's consultants, and coming up with these recommendations. So it's a very planned out process. So I'll go ahead and start. I think you should be on page 2 of your tracking sheets on 19.1.1, which is continuing planning and project management and facility maintenance support. That's $906,000. These provide funds for planning for technical assistance and project management services. This item addresses next steps in our mission to address critical needs in the Georgia Department of Corrections system as a whole. Since these items are in this budget are the first steps to triage and stabilize the system, this appropriation will allow for continued progress and collaboration with our partners going forward into the next budget cycle. Plan and development at $5 million. The one reoccurring theme in both staffing and facility need for a long-term facility and staffing plan to guide future capital and personnel decisions to ensure that the future resources needs are used efficiently as efficiently as possible. For example, some of the facilities may need to be slated taken offline. Some are not able to be upgraded to meet the modern needs of our security threat that our offender population are currently classified as. Additionally, the system will need to ensure that there's sufficient bed space to meet the growing offender population while allowing for flexibility to dry dock housing units to complete repairs and hardening initiatives. As offenders are moved between facilities must ensure sufficient staffing levels to meet the changing population levels without negatively impacting facility security. And now we're going to lay out that plan as we move forward with a 10-year staffing and development plan. 19.1.3 is a marketing initiative for CO recruitment and onboarding at $2.8 million. As you all know, recruitment and retention has always been one of one of our challenges, really on the recruitment side. So to recruit and retain staff has continued to be a challenge for the corrections, particularly during and after following COVID. While salaries have increased in previous years and recommended above will help address retention, Godhouse, which you know is our consultants, slated the need for an additional recruitment resources in corrections. Specifically, these funds will be used to ensure that corrections is targeting the right candidates for recruitment purposes and provide the right messaging and incentives to an employer to potential candidates in order to ensure that recruitment resources and outreach efforts are utilized effectively as possible. And some of the things we're going to do, it says marketing campaign, but while the caption says marketing, it's really much deeper dive into how to pursue the right candidate appropriately. So working with that, we're going to do really just laser focused target strategies on recruitment, retention, revamp our some of our commercials, our social media posts to really just vet the candidates and actually attain the candidates that we're looking for. Also, to streamline the onboarding process. One of the things that we've heard and the consultants heard is going around is some of the onboarding process probably needs to be streamlined and to provide resources to our HR staff and our investigative team to be able to retain or to hire or onboard those recruits a lot faster. And so we're going to have that plan, that recruitment plan laid out in further detail to address those needs. And updating the training curriculum for COs, that's at $900,000. Further standardized training for COs agency-wide to ensure consistency and utilize technology will allow scenario-based materials to enhance the current training model that we have. Again, as we're talking about retention and recruiting, we want to make sure that we're using the latest technology in our recruitment academies and utilizing scenario-based training. We already have some scenario-based training statewide right now, but to enhance that and further expand that throughout the state has been going very, very well. It's also to update the training cadet to improve fidelity across facilities, implement that, incorporate contemporary correctional practices and innovations to enhance the training experience, support employee retention through scenario-based training and update contact reflecting the job competencies and the current facility environment. And also develop an evaluation process to measure the skills and the competencies of those cadets. 19.2.1, the technical systems of Georgia educational contracts at $22,800. It's in growing offender population for the vocational contracts, and you'll see this spread out through detention centers and state prisons, so this may you'll see this same for the RSATs as well. 19.2.2, residential substance abuse treatment centers program contract increase for $73,000. It's an increase for our non-certified and certified counselors, about a 6% increase for our non-certified counselors in that contract, and a 3% increase for the certified. 19.2.3, Chromebooks for the technical education programs, 150 of them at $67,500. It's utilized for academic aid and vocational educational program, replaces damaged or outdated equipment, and provides new Chromebooks to those offenders. 19.2.4, redistribute central repair funds from state prisons program. As you know, our detention centers are also challenged with aging infrastructure, so that $1.5 million would go back into the transfer out of state prisons to the detention center program to address those needs with HVAC, boilers, chillers, and things of that nature. Any questions so far? Or you want to keep going, Mr. Chairman? I'm sorry.
You can keep going. Nobody's flashing their lights yet, so.
All right. Healthcare, 19.4.1, dental health contract increase, 2.1 million. It accounts for the ongoing continued support for the dental contract. GDC is, of course, in contracted with Centurion to provide dental health services to the population. This recommendation allows GDC to continue to maintain the core dental health services for that population. 19.4.2, increased funds for the mental health contract at $8 million. And has been a long-standing partner for our mental health and dental contracts for well over 2 decades. 19.4.3 increase in pharmacy services contract at 9.9 million. During last year's budget development, pharmacy contract was funded at 54.5 million. Since that time, GDC has since seen an increase in the population and the policy change in how we treat hepatitis C, which has increased costs for the amended year. And you'll see that reflected in
If I
that.
remember correctly, the vaccine probably 7 or 8 years ago used to be like 80,000 for each individual, and it was dropped down, I think, under contract for like 29,000 with a different. Is that still the case, or different provider?
It's about 15 now. I can have Assistant Commissioner.
I know it's all
So-
expensive any way you look at it.
It's expensive,
health-
yes. $14.6. The physical health contract with Centurion is a tiered contract based on offender population. The current budget for our physical health care contract is $240 million, and it was based on the offender population of 38,000. And the per offender month cost is about $527.26. The government recommendation is based off the offender population of 40,800 per month cost of $520.61, based on the most recent population report of January 2nd, 2025. And our current offender population for health is 40,800. Increases reflected in for physical health. 19.4.5 is EHR, Electronic Health Record Solution. Throughout our meetings this summer, we've discussed some challenges regarding our electronic health record management. Between switched over our healthcare vendors from AU, from WellPath now to Centurion, and each time we had to we've been tied to using their electronic health records. So this will allow us to continue to have our own in-house electronic health records in-house. So if we choose those records, this recommendation also includes the assumed base budget of $1.5 million, which was appropriated in fiscal year 2025. So it's a continuation to make sure that we manage and maintain our electronic health records. 19.4.6, we call the risk share. Outside these contract increases, the governor's recommendation and amended appropriations for our physical health contract risk share with the current physical health services vendor, there's an agreement to share the with Centurion for outside the wire care at 50-50, and if it exceeds that amount, we would share that cost. So the recommendation is based on the current population for a tiered rate for the risk share portion that GDC would be responsible for. Outside the wire care is not only the cost related to the actual facility stay of the offender, but also the personnel costs required to have 2 officers to accompany that offender when they go for an off-site hospital visit. We are hopeful that with these initiatives funded in this budget, such as increasing staffing ratios to curb offender violence, contract at $2.9 million. This is going for 188 beds at Coffee Correctional and 258 beds at Wheeler, utilizing the full contract capacity of existing private prison beds that are not currently budgeted, and supports addressing the aging infrastructure and expedite our lock and controls system and projects that we have ongoing.
What would happen if if the private prisons closed down, one of them?
We would have to absorb that population into either the state prisons or maybe another private facility. And it's really important too, as you talk about like some of the modular units too. It's really important of our high security modular units could be utilized for that as well.
I just saw a copy of the letter that was sent to you from one of them, and I think most everybody in state government has seen it. And a lot of people think it's not, there's no serious intent, but I feel otherwise. And
Yeah, anytime you send an official letter, you got to take it serious.
Well, it was addressed to people that can make a difference.
Yes, sir.
I just don't know.
Negotiations with that entity. You know, we're always been good partners with the private prisons, both with GEO and Core Civic, and so hopefully future talks during this process will alleviate that. But if not, we just have to come up with a contingency
Well, that's
plan.
my hope, is that it's alleviated and we don't have any further problems, because that's significant and it's going to be very costly, I think.
Yes, sir.
As is.
Bed space to move offenders to make these repairs. Corrections, you know, we're near max capacity at 34 of our state prisons, with the majority of the beds filled, have to be taken offline, and they're not secure. So I think, you know, it's important when we look at the bed spacing to utilize not only the private prisons, but our high security modular. Able to get that, to be able to meet that need. We're going to have to dry dock several facilities. What we mean by that is take them offline, put those offenders.
Or that's just projected?
Yeah, we don't have any in place yet, but what we've done, you know, I've went down and did some due diligence and went and looked at the manufacturing plant, and we say modular, and I think that's just kind of the term, like modular classrooms that you'll see outside of outside of precast, almost a fortress. I mean, it's literally a modular units that we could support it with the staff that we have on the ground currently, and be able to facilitate these lock and control and these hardened projects that we're funding. Because quite frankly, again, without utilizing everything that's outlined in the governor's recommendations, it's going to put the lock and control projects and these hardening projects back at least 4+ years outside of current schedule.
And aren't they supposed to be mobile, these modular?
They can be. They can be permanently fixed last 30 years, or we can pick them up and move them.
Yeah.
It'll take some time. It's not like you can just, you know, pick it up and just move it in a day. It'll
about it from our last meeting, and with the deterioration of the permanent it's going to be as solid as brick and mortar, because if you build it with the ability to move, you'll do that. If something comes up and you have to build one, you have to move, you're going to move that. And there's no way in the world that it's going to last 30 years.
what they look like.
I'd
And
love to see them.
and see, because they are, and I had the very same concerns.
We can't even run them out of town. Okay, I
versus private prisons. The modular unit, the housing unit, you know, was 93 point. And for maximum security beds. The 30-year cost for 504 private medium security beds is about $337 million. So you'll save a cost savings there of about $150 million, based off of all the calculations that we've done as well with Office of Planning and Budget.
Representative McDonald?
And of course, I got off this thing because he asked the question. You know, I'd love to see them. I mean, just an example, because we think of schools and modular. But are these modular? Are they stackable? Because I know in the wire protection, I didn't know, but space is important, especially if you're putting them near,
Yes.
inside a already developed system. So I didn't know just kind of what does it take up the space? An example of all that.
Yeah, they're not stackable, but they're like, all one level, I should say. But you'll be able to, we've already looked at several sites around the state where they can fit. We had our engineering teams go out and take a look at their sites. And also, the companies also sent some of their all 504 beds up and running before the end of the year.
Unbeknown to me, we have a couple. Number 13, Tobias. You got a question?
Sure, yeah, I do, but we'll wait till he gets, if you're okay with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, you can look at it online. It's ModCore.
ModCore? Yeah, I want to see it while I can ask the commissioner a question.
Well, who owns ModCore?
ModCorr.com.
Yeah, who owns them? Who are they? I mean, no.
Facilities that they offer medical and
I just think everybody has a hard time visualizing what
How long they been
these could be.
used?
I think when you say modular, they think about modular homes, and certainly.
I didn't use
come in pieces.
This is a cell, this is a cell.
Yeah, I understand, but you got so many. Up around them.
Yes, yeah, they'll go inside, the pre-existing fence, and we may have to put some
Now,
fencing on it.
this amount of money, this
The locking control system in the other prison, the
So-
same locking controls.
Can they get it in blue?
Systems, and the rest of them in state prison. If you just take probably that population where we have to do most of this hardening, that's where our most violent offenders in the state of Georgia are. I would say that that number is definitely in the 90s, system-wide.
Okay, but
So if we have any older facilities, I'm not sure that's state-owned, they're not going to be conducive to how to the hardening projects. And some of them are open bay, open dorm. We can't put the population that we serve right now in a open bay setting.
okay, so these facilities that are shut down that are state-owned, we have some of them.
I have to look at some. We have. I think we have one or two.
Are they
Wayne
being
State,
maintained by the state?
they're being maintained by the state, but we got out of them for a reason. I mean, they're old buildings, old lines of sight.
Can we get rid of the property?
It'll be up to the State Properties Commission, but yes, we could.
Thank you.
Yes.
We get somebody in the back to turn the lights off. It showed up, but it's kind of light.
Can you, press play and
I
make
can.
it do the full screen?
This is as you walk in into it. It has a fully control room area for the officer. And of course, this is just the same caliber rentals. Everything's detention grade, high security grade, windows, doors, locks, even down to it's no welding. It's laser welded, so you don't have inmates won't be able to pick in between the ceilings. It's hardening. So basically the hardening projects that we're going to be doing with some of this funding is going to look something similar to this, especially with the ceilings. All the walls are concrete walls in between, concrete rebar walls in between, also with the steel. So it's not hollow. It's a solid structure. And this is just an example. It wouldn't look exactly like this. We can design it, especially like with some of the windows there in the back. It's fully customizable for us to design as we see fit.
I think it just gives everybody, turn the lights back on, gives everybody an idea of what they really look like. I just can't, like I said before, I think modular brings everybody to mind about mobile homes, and that certainly isn't gonna retain a lot of prisoners for very long.
Yes, sir. All right.
One more question,
Yes.
number 3.
Oh,
Okay. Okay, move on. I hated to detain you. I know this is gonna be a while. So.
Oh, no, you're fine.
And I've
sir.
heard it about 5 times this year.
Next on your tracking number, state prisons correctional officer recruitment at 19.7.1. It's increased CO positions by 330 positions. And then finally, Georgia, here in Georgia, our correctional system, we have a 1 to 14 correctional officer fit to offender ratio. Guardhouse examining staffing ratios in neighboring states, and Georgia ranked on the lower end of the scale comparatively to our neighbors. To bring our field security staffing levels to 1 to 11 ratio, where we see in Arkansas, Mississippi, North Carolina, we would add an additional 882 positions to the already 2,770 we had at the end of last fiscal year. We do not think adding 882 positions is achievable in a single fiscal year, so we're phasing that across 2 fiscal years for approximately 440 positions during fiscal year 26. That's about 110 per quarter that will be funded. The good news is we're already making progress towards that goal. So far this fiscal year, we've seen 243. The FY25 recommendation funding and additional personnel services needed to cover that improvement in retention. FY26, as you'll see, I know we're not talking about that, the recommendations will annualize that figure with the goal of getting 333 net additional officers by the end of third quarter of fiscal year 26. Based on the current employee count, we feel like this is an achievable target to hit, as we're already well exceeding that currently. Longer term, we plan to continue to work with Guardhouse to determine the appropriate staffing ratios based on facility layout and security levels, which are likely to require additional security staff in future fiscal years. Next, state prisons.
Just for informational purposes, tell everybody how short you are now and there are a couple of different concepts. One is how many people you're supposed to have, and the other is how many are funded, which is significantly different.
Yeah, I think we're about, like I said, I think we mentioned in a couple of weeks ago, we were 2,600 vacancies for security staff short. Keep in mind, I think during the COVID years, we've lost somewhere about 2,800. But like I said, we're moving in the right direction. Fiscal year 23, we had a net gain of 672. Fiscal year 24, a net gain of 569. Fiscal year 25 year to date, right now we're at 296. So we're slowly pulling out of that hole, but it's going to take this continuing effort to kind of get us where we need to be.
Do you think funding and pay would
Yes.
I know it'll help, but you think it's the answer to all your problems? Or?
Yeah, and I think you see with the pay increases that the governor put in the budget and this body supported over the years has definitely helped that. That's why I think you see those net increases in retention over the last 3 fiscal years. And so we're going to continue to do that, continue to work on improving workplace culture. But then also, more importantly, I think what speaks volumes in this budget recommendation is also to improve not only conditions for the inmate population. People often forget we have to work in those same conditions too. So making sure that we're supporting the staff in that way. A lot of them, they get into this field not knowing what they're getting into, and having to work in some of the prisons where it's just not, where they're falling apart. That also plays a role in the retention.
And I know what it is, but just for everybody's knowledge here, what's the starting salary for a correctional officer?
Currently we're at $44,000, and so the increases would be, you'll see that in the big budget, will come up to about 45.
And see, when I first came on this committee 13 years ago, it was 27,000. So
Yes.
There's a significant increase, but some of the benefits have deteriorated too. So
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Educational programs, also in state prisons at 19.7.15. Again, those are the technical college, the Chromebooks that we spoke about earlier, and the same thing reflected in 19.7.16, 19.7.17 in the RSAT. We talk about those increases in the previous program to support those contract increases.
How many of these were recommended by the consultant?
I have to go back and pull pull that number.
Most of them are, though.
But
aren't
most
they?
of them, when they did their assessment, were recommended by the consulting group. Yes.
And for those of you that don't know, the governor hired a consulting group and that's been going on for what, 9 or 10 months?
Yes, sir.
They've been looking at the prison system and tried to come up with some answers to remedy the problems, so.
And they've done an excellent job in working in conjunction with Governor's Office and Guidehouse Moss Group and CGL. We hit the ground running, and to identify some immediate needs and some long-term needs. And so we're definitely looking forward to continuing working with them to come up with some more recommendations to put in there. But the majority of what's recommended in the budget came out of their assessment as well. Next, the state prison safety, security, and technology, 19.7.10, managed access and drone detection systems at $35 million. As you know, contraband has been one of our biggest problems facing the department in maintaining order and safety and introduction of contraband items. Contraband enters the facility by several routes. Drones have been an issue currently in our past, throwovers and different other means of entering contraband. Introduction of cell phones allow offenders to communicate and organize within and between GDC facilities as well as outside parties. The governor recommends continuing to invest in drone detection and managed access systems will help prevent these items from entering the facility and identifying prohibited items that are already present. Along with these other initiatives, officer training and staff will also help meet our goal in reducing incidents and violence and adverse medical outcomes. Again, I think when you look at our contraband problem, we made tremendous strides in mitigating that. But as soon as you bring the fight to them, they start coming back even more. So to actually continue this and add these drone detection and managed access systems into our system, I definitely will make our system safer. As you heard me say time and time again, cell phones are considered, in my opinion, a deadly weapon inside state prisons. Not only are they facilitating hits and within the state prisons, also outside state prisons, also continuing their criminal and gang activity both inside and outside the wire. And I think it's definitely will curb some of the issues that we have by eliminating that. Most of our issues that we see from an investigation standpoint stem from contraband, whether it's cell phones or drugs or whatever else that they have. It's stemming from that, and how they get it in is through cell phones and drones and throwovers as well. That's how the majority of how our contraband gets into our
I was down
system.
at the airport in Waycross the other day, and they were talking about all the problems they had, and one of them was people were cutting the fences at night, and they were coming inside, and they were going down the fence line to wear CI so they could throw contraband over the fence for the inmates to come pick up the next day when they got turned loose. And it was doing significant damage to costing them a lot of money, but I can't imagine the volume of contraband that they were putting in there.
Yeah, it's a very, very lucrative business to the criminal activity, the gang members and criminal world out there. And it's a problem for us to keep up with it, quite honestly. It stretches our staff thin, especially when we have throwovers or drone sightings. We have to dedicate resources to that because you just don't know what's in those deliveries, what's in that package that's coming in. So while our staff are doing diligently trying to do their jobs, when you have something like that come over the fence or you see or hear a drone in the air, we have to dedicate resources to that. And we're just thankful for our local partners as well because they help us in that fight tremendously.
They say it's all happening at night. They've had to hire security personnel to run the fences at night now to try and keep them from cutting their fences.
Yes.
So.
That drone detection, you're just using that technology to say that there's a drone there. What are you doing? What exactly when you detect one? What application you put to destroy it, or what do you do?
Well, I wish we could take them out of the air. Again, that's a federal regulation that they won't let us do.
Why come we can't?
Federal law won't allow us to do it, and it's quite honestly it's against federal regulations. Even if it's like 10 feet in the air and I swat at it with a broomstick to get it out of the air, that's a federal offense. So what the technology does that we have, we're not getting too technical into it. It detects the drone coming into our airspace, into our prison airspace, but then also we'll be able to detect where it came from. And so we can utilize our local partners to help us, capture where it took off from. And we've been very successful with that. We've been very successful of locating the pilots, waiting for it to come back.
Yeah, you and I have had that conversation. They're off-site. They're not on the prison property. And then the local governments are having to incarcerate these people and take care of them for what they're doing to a state facility. And I do have a little problem with that. Some of these smaller counties can't hardly afford to keep these. And there's a number of them. I mean, you know that. I mean, you know more than I do about it. But I mean, these drones are huge, and they're taking in things like that. But I know I sound like a broken record. But these cell phones and these drones have got to be stopped before they get there. And there's got to be, in this world of technology, some way to stop those things.
And there is. We just got to, get some of the regulations lifted so we can be able to utilize that technology.
Because I want to help y'all as much as anything. And I want to help those guards. I want to keep them safe.
Yes.
And I want to keep the people around these prisons and these towns safe. That's all I care about. Now, I do care about inmates, but they are in jail for a reason. They abolished their rights in a lot of ways. So we can't give in to them. And I just wish that we would look at it, if it's a FCC thing, and it's just not common sense to let these things keep coming in. And then I look at the next line down here, 9711, we're going to do off-site screening on the mail. Well, that's just going to, if you stop it there, they're going to increase somewhere.
Yeah,
So,
well, the majority of our contraband, like I said, comes in through throwovers, drones, and that nature. And you're right, they're big drones. So there's a big push right now from all of my counterparts across the country to push our federal partners for jamming technology and also drone mitigation. Actually, I think the state of Georgia is leading the way in that effort and what we're doing to combat cell phone and drone technology. We already presented at a international conference earlier in January about how drones are plaguing correctional systems, not only here in Georgia, but again, we're facing that across the country. More so, everybody enjoyed and they took heed of what we were saying and saying, hey, Georgia's doing it right, but we're still fighting the battle. I mean, it's not going away. But we're actually leading that effort across the country and also in D.C. to push the federal partners to our federal FCC, FFA, to do something about the technology to allow us to be able to jam or at least designate our airspace so you can't fly a drone, to be able to safely bring down the drone, because right now you can't do that even with the technology that's available.
Well,
but
anyway,
we're working.
I do want to bring more light to the counties that are catching these folks that's doing this, and they having to hold. They sums it up to 30 people in their jails in small little counties with 7, 8, 10,000 people. That's a lot of money that these counties are having to fork out to house these people.
And again, we're thankful for our local partners, because without them, there's no telling, what that does. And it also protects the community where the prison is located, because of stopping that contraband from actually getting in and catching them.
I'd like to see us be able to assist them in some of the cost on that if we can. I know that's not your ball game, but I just want to bring it to light that is happening, and not just my area, but in other areas too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Representative Williams, again.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. You're so kind. Let me ask you this. Your 800, is it 846 this your goal to, or new hires, COs?
It's 880.
880 against a 2,600 need. And I expressed it before, but let me do it in a different manner. How can you keep people if you hire somebody and they go in and see you hadn't got but 8 people, you got a couple of hundred people? They say, I'm not staying here. Hey, they've already agreed to the money, but the very fact that you don't have the personnel, if they holler for help, I suggest that they have some jet shoes on, because help won't be coming. They need to run. And until you change that, you're not going to be able to recruit enough. That's why we're down at 8. I've seen your ads, and they're very good, and they do good. But when folk come, what do they see when they see what they have to put up against, and they ain't even got a pistol? And it looks like to me the prisoners got anything they need to do you in. So they walk around with a walkie-talkie, and what is it, taser? What is it?
Keys. Some of them have
keys
tasers,
and a walkie-talkie.
Some of them have OC, but not all.
And you want me to handle 100 and some people. Do these people last 2 weeks when they see the circumstances once they get there?
Yeah, some of them do. I think that's why, I always say the men and women that work inside or outside the prisons are unsung heroes. I mean, they go in dealing with the most dangerous population in that community by far. They have the toughest mission in public safety, bar none. I mean, I've worked every aspect of law enforcement, I can say that. But let me just put in perspective also when we talk about staffing. Like if you take an average prison on a staffing per shift, if we're fully staffed, you may have maybe 18, maybe 20 officers per shift. And that's fully staffed, right? And so you're taking a prison of about 15 to 1,800 inmates. I mean, 20 people per shift, is that, that's still really.
That's upside down on its very face.
But that's where it's been for years.
But look at your turnover numbers for years. I've heard several commissioners come, and the numbers are horrendous. And it's got to be connected a lot of times to the safety of the job. How do you send a 120-pound woman in there with 1,000 inmates? She's not going to last most of the time. And you have a dedicated cadre. I agree. You have to be dedicated. But it's obvious you got more naysayers than dedication, because your numbers for vacancies are high, 2,600, and we don't even think we can get 800 this year.
Well, I think when you look at it, it's a strategic approach and phasing approach. You can see when I talked about the number of netted employees that we have over the last fiscal years. I mean, the 800 is a goal that we strive to get to, and then we're going to continue to tackle it. I think that the notion of trying to onboard 2,600 people in one fiscal year is just not possible. We get a lot of applications per year. We average about over 800, almost 1,000 applications per month. But the problem is they're not quality candidates. Most of them drop out. They don't even show up for the interview process, and a lot of them can't pass the background check. And so that's where you leave a lot of them. The next one is this poor interview.
I understand. My big question is, if that's so, and I can go to Hyundai, and they can't hire enough fast enough, why can't you hire? Most people can't find employees. You find them and you say 1,000 washed out. How do they get to work at these other places? What's our problem, and how can we fix it?
It's a calling. I think you hear me talk.
You need more preachers, you're saying?
Come on, you got the preacher voice. We need to put you on our next commercial.
Not for what your starting pay is, but go ahead.
But I think it's a calling. I've always said it's a calling. There's not enough money that you can put on what these men and women do inside those prisons. You spoke about it. You said, you take that CO, whether that officer, whether it's a male or a female, and you put them in that dorm with 100 offenders, and violent offenders. We talk about. You see what the violence is. How much money an hour you want to pay them? It's a calling. The men and women that work inside the prison system are currently, and those who are in the pipeline, those who are coming to work, it's a calling to them. And those who continue to stay, it's a calling. A lot of people are not built for this. They're not.
Sure.
And so when we have them, we got to make sure we stay. And I respect the ones who come in and think that it's a calling, and then they get out, because I mean, it's a tough job. It's a tough job for them.
Commissioner, we're trying to get there, and I'm worried because a lot of people, And I spend a lot of time defending you because I have great respect for you, and I know you got probably the toughest job in state government. I spend a lot of time defending you. But people don't have faith in our ability to fix the prison system. They really don't. And until we can, when people pass by a prison, I'll take one in Tatnall County. I passed by there at night, and I mentioned this the last time I talked, and I see 5 cars in the parking lot. I'm already scared. And I'm not the only one to notice how short the night shift is. And old former sheriff from Liberty County, Bobby Sykes, used to say, the boogers come out at night. So during your worst period of offense, you ain't got nobody. They can't. How can all this go on when you don't even have enough people to monitor the monitors? Where do we go?
Well, I think one of the things that we didn't get over here overnight. We definitely can't get out of it overnight. But I think this with this budget recommendation, the amended budget, and the FY26 budget will definitely a step in the right direction to fix that. Again, we're addressing. You all have been addressing staff pay. We're addressing now infrastructure and making the job safer. All these hardening projects and lock and control projects that we got in the amended budget, and that's what's gonna put us again closer to that 880 number that we're looking at, probably to try to exceed it. Because you're right. If you're walking in there, if that CO knows that once they put that offender up at night behind the door and they can't get out, they're gonna feel a lot safer. So what we're doing in this budget and these recommendations is definitely a step in the right direction towards that and making it a safe environment, but then also making sure that we retain and recruit the right candidates.
I appreciate you. In Vietnam, I guarded and transported Viet Cong. Believe me, it was terrifying to have 15 of them, and I had an M16 and a 45. I can't imagine dealing with 100 people with nothing but a set of keys.
They're amazing people.
They got to be.
They are, and I think they need to be commended for that every time they come to work. I'm telling you, they are true, in my opinion, true heroes, that unsung heroes that go in and out there and dedicated to keep the prison safe and also Georgia safe. The ones that are there, and we have a lot of dedicated men and women that's doing the job and doing it right.
And the truth is, this is a universal problem across the country.
Absolutely. I was just
And
about
what
to
we're
mention
doing
that.
here is we're trying to do the best we can to fix it as best we can. I don't know. I've been in state government 56 years now, and I've watched all different kinds of people in your job, from professors from universities that had PhDs, had a general and a couple of colonels. One of them from my old agency was the commissioner for a while, and had people come up through the ranks. And I'm not sure anybody's really had a grasp on it. I mean, it's just what it is. And
It is. I mean, you're
we
dealing
want
with
to
a
make
tough.
it the best we can make it for prisoners and for the
Absolutely.
staff.
You're dealing with a tough population, and like I think you hit on it, it's not just a Georgia problem. I mean, my counterparts across this country are dealing with the exact same thing right now.
And I've told y'all, and it's funny, but it's not. Violence in the Georgia prison system. And he pointed his finger at him and said, Governor, when are you going to stop the violence in the Georgia prison system? And he thought a minute and he said, I'm going to stop it as soon as we start getting a better class of prisoner. and there's they're there because you can't manage them.
Yeah.
And some of the lesser drug offenses aren't even going to prison anymore. It's the hardcore people, the violent people that are there that we need to be afraid of.
Yeah, 1 in 4 offenders in our current. It's about 47% of our total population.
And I was astounded when in one of our prayer meetings when you the overwhelming majority are among cellmates.
Correct.
But they live in that little cell together for a long time. And if you know, with intimate relationships with husbands, wives, children, you get to the point sometimes where you don't feel real good about it. And these people are violent, so what do? They become violent and hurt one another.
Yes, sir.
So we're trying to and I don't know if you can bring it up, but we're trying to build more prisons with single cells.
And I think that again, and until we get to that point, again, it's not, that's a long-term fix. You know, we have Washington State Prison going to come online in a couple of years, but I mean, that's the ultimate goal. And I think also before we get there, we also have to secure and harden what we have until we can get to that place. And I think that's why it's so important, again, to support these done in a timely manner.
Yeah, we're not trying to badger you. You know,
Oh, no,
this is a very serious issue, and
Absolutely.
you know, we want to get it right and make sure that the proper funding's in place to try and make it as best we can make it. So
Yes, sir.
And I know you've done this 5 or 6 times that I've been there, and I know you're getting tired of it, but
No.
I appreciate you being forthright.
I'm good.
Don't be nice. You are tired of us.
No, sir. I enjoy this part of the job.
Thank you. Speaking of thanking people, thank you, Commissioner, for your efforts. But let's turn from people to technology, because we can maybe scale some of our efforts. So we had talked earlier, because speaking of here and talking a couple of us are on some subcommittees that we talked to you about the FUSIS, which is actually a Georgia, I didn't know that it was actually a Georgia company that could maybe help us fill some of the people gaps by the AI and the camera technology. Tell us a little bit about that, and then also we also talked about the cameras that automatically came on. So can you talk to us a little bit about some technology that could help you?
Yes. So I think we're talking about Fusus cameras, which is now owned by Axon. But we were talking about standing up a Overwatch unit. Essentially, it's in traditional law enforcement, it's called like a real-time crime center within the Georgia Department of Corrections, and that will put not only will you have more eyes and ears on multiple prisons in a centralized location, command location outside of the control rooms, things of that nature. Mr. Williams spoke about, like at night we can monitor those prisons from a remote location, and also have analytics built into those cameras to where, you know, you can set it up several different ways. If inmates pop out or they're gathering, some of them can detect weapons. We'll be able to alert the staff on the ground of what's going on, be able to actually monitor multiple locations at one time in a real-time crime center, which would be very beneficial as we to helping retain staff as well. They'll feel a lot safer knowing that there's someone else watching them outside of the other than the control room, and actually calling for assistance and getting someone there. So that system will definitely be a huge benefit for safety and security, not only for our staff also, but for the inmate population. And it'll be definitely an added benefit for us.
Is that in this budget?
It's not, no, sir.
Is it planned for the big budget?
No, sir.
Okay. Is that separate from the cameras that automatically?
Yeah, so the body cameras that is funded in here, that's on 19.7.13, the body camera and taser. Currently, you know, that's with Axon. Again, we have tasers, and we also have body cameras throughout the state, but they're not uniform. So what that will do, will integrate both our taser and our body cameras together. So when an officer pulls their taser out of the holster, the camera automatically come on. They do that so you don't have to worry about turning it on, turning it off. But not only that, if you have that Overwatch unit, it'll also send that feed to that Overwatch unit, so it could be monitored from a remote location. Not only that, but also, you know, if the warden, or if he or she is not actually on the prison, we could designate that who receives that alert and that feed once that happens. So you can monitor the officer's activities with that technology.
What kind of, back to the FUSIS project, to that, would that be a prison by prison? Getting some kind of system?
We already have FUSIS in several of our state prisons, or to what we call the Overwatch unit. and expanding that out. So some of the
But the ones that it is being used, because this is similar to my question about the jammers that are being up. Facilities that have it, is the crime level down?
like you would if we had the real-time crime center laid up. Prime example, when we first turned on one of the Fusus cameras in one of the state prisons, we were down in one of the centers monitoring the what we call cell sense. It detects if inmate has any type of metal or anything nefarious on them. Move through. Where we're watching this real time down in our communication center. Cell sense and clears it while she's watching other ones clear it. He reaches down and somebody passes him a homemade weapon from underneath the door. An incident from happening in the chow hall once they clear it, because the inmates are very creative and trying to get contraband through.
So it's very effective. So I think you're about to give me some numbers of what it would take.
2.6 to build out Overwatch unit.
All right, to build out the Overwatch unit, it'll be about 2.6 million,
That's to staff it annually.
and then to staff it annually would be 2.7.
And then Fusus.
And then
So-
Fusus monitoring is 4.2 upfront costs.
So 9 million, but 4 million one time up front.
Okay, you want to do it, Michelle? Oh, never mind.
So $9 million would do all 35 prisons.
Yes.
And then the 2.2 is annual ongoing.
Would be a continual.
For Fusus, and then the staff would be 2.7 annually.
Sounds like a heck of a bargain compared to a $1 billion prison in Washington County.
Yeah, it'll definitely help. But I think also that the new prison is definitely needed too.
Oh, I know we need it, but I'm just saying comparison.
Oh yeah.
And what we're spending to harden. And for those asking about unused facilities, be surprised to know, Representative Williams, that the prison you're riding by in Tattnall County is the newest prison in the state of Georgia. It's 40 years old.
40 years old.
So the one that's not being used in Wayne County is about 60 years old. So it would take, you might as well build a new one. So that's why we're at where we're at. But anyway, I just wanted more information because that sounded like a good investment to me.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
I don't understand. I understand that the governor makes recommendations, but wouldn't it be nice if you recommended 9 million to do a lot of stuff? To me, it's almost a no-brainer. I can't understand why we got it and trying not to use it. $9 million, and look at the budget we're looking at.
Yeah, I think it's looking at prioritization and prioritizing projects again. We didn't get here overnight. We still gotta get out of seriously looking at funding it, maybe an amended or moving forward. But it's definitely a need. There's a lot of needs that we have, and we're very thankful for the governor's recommendation. Definitely a step in the right direction. We can't fix all this. We didn't get here, but we're definitely very appreciative of the recommendations that we have in front of us.
Let's move right along. I got a lot.
You send word.
I the original package information. Service would also be a digital mailing version to be where people will send in paper sprayed with yeah, it's there. They use bug killer. Our digital forensics contracts, that's 1.4 million. As you're aware, FCC has also reduced the cost through the FCC order that's taking effect January 1. GDC putting at risk our ability to monitor and respond to criminal activity. Our digital of the information on there for our intel unit, and we go after the criminal and gang activities. Not only that, but they also monitor our continue that program if we don't have it. It's very, very effective tool that we need to maintain. Again, they do, and they do very, very well. Not only that, you know, a lot of other agencies get into cell phones and things of that nature for any other crimes, as well as our local partners as well. Contract moving forward. 19.7.13, we already talked about the body cameras and tasers at 7.2 million. Again, supporting that effort would also enhance our safety technology and making sure .14 additional officer tablets at 2.5. What we found when you talk about retention is that our officers conduct all your daily rounds, daily business, and then go back and document it. So for our staff, and you hear that when you go around how much they enjoy that having that tablet to be able to do that. It's very user friendly for them, and also speaks to the generation that we're hiring today. Also, state prisons at 19.7.8, a 5-person Tiger team to support lock and control systems at 248,000. It's a 5-person Tiger team to focus on lock and control systems, and security electronics. It's a short-term, immediate solution to plan with our partners, with our engineering department to specialize critical repairs and locks. So that Tiger team will be in addition and support our ongoing efforts to making sure that we repair and keep these lock and control systems up and running from vandalism. 19.7.5, site work and construction of a 426-bed modular correctional units. We spoke about that at 93.2 million. If you want to discuss that a little bit more, but for time's sake, if I can answer any questions on those modular units. Again, everything it's strategic when we made these recommendations and sitting down with the governor's office and Guidehouse on how to get our locking repair systems and our hardening projects done. I can't emphasize that enough. I know this body and also other committees had expressed concern for immediate need to repair locks, do hardening projects as we begin to bring facilities online in the future. And I firmly believe, and I stand on this, that this is definitely the best way to utilize that funding to be able to get us to our goal in a timely manner and getting those lock and repair systems and hardening projects done. 19.7.6, design and construction for new lock and control systems. This is designed for 5 future facilities, construction for 2 design facilities, and lock upgrades for 3 facilities. Facilities construction could take about 4 to 5 months at a close security, 6 to 12 months at a medium security, and all dependencies on hardware, manufacturing time, vendor availability, bed space management, and lock and control estimates at 16 state prisons. We'll have that done by the end of 2028. Again, that's with sticking to the plan with the 504 modular units. If not, we're going to be pushed out to at least, I think it was like 2032. It's going to extend it. It's going to extend that project. As far as what that'll do and making sure we can stay on task with that. Got a question?
He
always has a question.
Yeah,
I couldn't turn my page fast enough. I was trying.
Yeah.
So.
That's why they pay me the big bucks. But Chairman Hatcher, in our other committee, was very adamant about improving the timeline on those locks. 32 is a long ways off, and from what y'all telling me about the age of these buildings, hell, that might be the only thing standing. It's locked.
32 would be if we went another way outside of the high security modular units. 2028 will be completion of all those facilities that we have listed.
The question was asked, is there any way to step up those lock replacements? I think the chairman stressed it strongly. We've got to show some progress, and if we can't replace the locks any quicker than that, I'd rather say put in a huge order and spend some real money and bring in these modular units and tear down all the others, because you can do it quicker than you can replace the locks, it sounds like.
You can, but I think when it comes to replacing locks, it's a lot more complex than just
I can see
going in and getting a lock from Home Depot or Lowe's. I mean, you have to go. You're talking about locking and locking control systems, and so they're detention grade locks, and it's also going to depend on what takes the most time is the manufacturing time. So in ordering the lock, so you still have that lag time between when we place an order for let's say 100 locks. It could take what's the time frame now? I don't know somewhere.
That's way quicker than what 60 to 90 days. Why can't
you
order them all at once, man? Get you some folk to put them in.
To get on the schedule.
To get on the schedule, you need another supplier. That's obvious.
Well, we're using the only 3 suppliers that are making locks.
You know what scares me, and I'm through, Mr. Chairman, I'm through. It scares me that in state government, it takes forever to do anything. When I watched that plant, the state put over $1 billion in to get them here, turn a shovel of dirt in 18 months, turn out cars. And we can't get locks. When they put a multi-billion-dollar building, turn out cars, 18 months, and we're talking years to put locks in. Something wrong with this problem. And I don't get offended until state government gets over this foolishness. And I hear about excuse my expression.
Sit next to you, man.
God almighty, I never heard such.
You know, speeding up that process. That's what that, you know, that Tiger team is for as well, to speed it up. Again, I wish we could do the exact same thing. I want the locks fixed. This is as bad as you do. But I think, you know, again, it goes back to, you know, moving those inmates to design, locking controls. I mean, it's a lot. Again, it's not like putting a lock inside of your house. You got your locking control system, your electronic systems, doors, and tying it back in to the technology and to aging infrastructure is another issue. But I mean, I hear you. I mean, I wish we can have these locks fixed a lot quicker than 2028. But I think that's a good timetable. 17.7.2 project backlog in major repairs projects at 36.9 million. Again, that's 25.2 million to address funding shortfalls in progress projects, and 11.7 million of that is going to other security projects that's slated for lock and control systems. 19.7.3 critical capital maintenance and repairs at 35 million. Again, you always hear our ongoing issues with the aging infrastructure. This to bring our existing beds online to further assist in the population management. That's why it's very important to fund that, as well as to continue our major repairs and maintenance. 19.7.18 is redistribute the central repair funds to detention centers. We spoke about that earlier, and the transitional centers at 2.9 is taking that money out of state prisons to do the same emergency repairs and maintenance to our detention centers and transitional centers. $19.7.4, additional maintenance personnel and regional support staff at 15.2 million. That's to hire 100 emergency maintenance labor staff and to associates, and also material costs to address our failing and infrastructure, and then also to add 10 additional regional support subject matter experts for engineering and construction services. And so that'll add 110 positions to that to make sure that we can get to support our ongoing efforts for our lock and control systems and our infrastructure needs that we have going on. So to Mr. Williams, to speak to your point, that's kind of what we're doing to expedite that. If we didn't have that funding, it'll take a lot longer. And so when we did our calculations, putting these people in place will definitely get us to that goal to help expedite that. But again, we're sometimes on lock and controls, we're still hindered by the time it'll get the locks. 19.7.7 additional project manager resources at 10 to supervise the projects. As you can see, we have a lot of projects going with the major repairs and maintenance, lock and controls, drone detection systems, all that. And so we're going to hire additional project managers, contract with additional project managers to help us stay on track, on time, and within budget to help us manage that. And 19.7.9 additional skilled craftsmen Tiger teams. This is a two-five-person Tiger team that's skilled plumbers, mechanics, fabricators, welders, electricians, and a two-person Tiger team for major mechanical systems, HVAC, boilers, and chiller technicians to support our staff already to go around and do those emergency repairs and maintenance at 1.1 million, and that'd be a total of 22.4 for those projects. So a summary for state prisons, because I know it was a lot. For correctional officer recruitment, that was 10.4 million. Educational program that we spoke about, 1.1 million. Safety, security, technology initiatives, 47.1. Lock and control systems and support, 127.7 million. Emergency repairs and emergency maintenance and major repairs, 69.7 million. Maintenance and project management support, 22.4 million, for a total of $278,608,622. And majority of that was from the God House recommendations and working with God House and the governor's office to provide those recommendations, much needed recommendations, Mr. Chairman. Transitional centers, moving on, to be really quick, 19.8.1, 19.8.2, 19.8.3. Again, we spoke about the increases for contracts for technical colleges and the Chromebooks, and the redistributing the funds out of state prisons to address their infrastructure needs as well. So the program overview, what we have in 19.1, Department Administration, again, just a quick overview, 9.6 million. Detention centers at 19.2, it's gonna be 1.7 million. Food and farm, we didn't have anything allocated for food and farm. Health, 65.7 million. Private prisons, 2.9 million. State prisons, 278.6 million. Transitional centers, 779,960 for a total of $559,393,596. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any further questions that you all may have.
I've only got one, and I see two more lit up, but the County Correctional Institute.
Yes.
You know, that we have, I don't know how many there are around the state.
21.
We've dealt with this for years now and trying to provide a basic allotment per prisoner per day to try and satisfy the requirements that the counties have and to maintain them and then move them out of the state prisons too. And how much are we paying a day now for those? Do you recollect?
$24.
24, and it costs them about $45–50 to maintain them.
I'm not sure that costs.
Yeah, and the reason for that is I've talked to several of them, and of course they complain, but they say that they can't continue to do this, and we put money in there and it's been taken out, but their county budgets won't allow it. And I said, what's the alternative? And they said, well, we can hire 1099 employees. We can hire people and come out and cut grass or do whatever. And if they don't do a sufficient job, we can let them go. We don't have to pay for the room and board, and they're pushing to get more money. And I understand it. I mean, and I don't guess you have the answer. I'm just telling you what I deal with. And of course that further exacerbates the problem with regard to how we can house prisoners if we have to send them back. And the county I live in, the guy says that's what they want to do. And you know, I've got another representative down there that's from another part of the state, and he's the county commission chairman, and he says they can't do it any longer either. And so I don't know how we can fix it. We put money in there every year, and it keeps getting cut out. But
yes, sir.
And I just wanted to be out there.
Yes, sir.
Vice Chairman?
One quick question. This is unusual. I see all of these numbers where everything has an increase, but there's a zero on the food and farm operation. And then it says the purpose of this appropriation is to manage timber, raise crops and livestock, and produce dairy items used in preparing meals for offenders. Is this an effective program that we have?
It is.
Is it a good program?
It is.
Does it save the state money?
Yes, it does.
Well, what my question is, I was looking back, it doesn't look like we've had a increase on anything with this for several years.
Correct.
And I was just wondering if it was effective, efficient, and good. We need to look after it. Now, that's my opinion. So I was just curious to see that that's the only zero I see on this whole page.
Yes,
and that was just unusual to me. And so I got to looking, and I said, gosh, why is that zero if it's good? And these folks are from this state, right? These people that do this,
Yes.
managing the timber and the,
Yes.
so I kind of like that. So I may get offline with you
All right.
and see what that is, because y'all have increased in the amount of capacity, haven't you?
Yes.
And we don't have any increase.
I think, you know, again, looking at the recommendation, I think it was very strategic in working with the consultants, Guidehouse, and the governor's office to look at like top priority items right now. And lock and control, safety, security, retention of staff was top priority. Not saying food and farm isn't. I think when in conversations that I've had with Office of Planning and Budget and the Governor's Office, we're definitely going to be looking at that in the future budget years. But I think for the immediate need right now, from the consultants and then also looking at Governor's Office, we had to prioritize something.
Yeah.
Again, I think when you look back at our budgets, this is definitely a much needed infusion into our budget to address a problem that's really been neglected for quite some time. So again, it's going to take us some time to get out. So now we got to prioritize all these projects and all this funding mechanism. It's not going to be the last time. Hopefully, we can still see growth in revenues within the state and still continue to maintain and make investments into the correctional system. But looking and talking with the consultants and working diligently with them, it's not like we neglected food and farm, but we had to prioritize and triage what was important today.
Yeah. Well, I don't want us to neglect that if it's productive, if it's doing what it should do.
It needs some attention too, but
yeah,
I think
because I don't want it to get into the shape of the other ones that we're gonna have to catch
Correct.
up so much later that
Correct.
we're already in a hole.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
It does, and I think going back just as you all looking through this budget again, is to kind of I can't emphasize this enough, to plan to stick with. So if we start trying to move money within our current budget to fund something else, it's just going to delay some of the things that we have already working.
Well, you have encouraged me to say that you're all saying it's viable, it works, it's good, it's local folks.
Yes.
I mean, people here.
Yes.
That fits my criteria, and I thank you. And I appreciate what y'all do. I know y'all got a heck of a job. Thank you.
And you ought to go over there sometime and see their farm. I've been over there many times in Reedsville, and they grow their own vegetables. They got their own dairy farm.
Chicken plant.
Chickens, cattle, hogs.
Cattle.
They do everything, and they feed most of the prison system. And the labor is generally from prisoners. Now they have staff that oversee it, but and they feed pretty much the whole prison system.
Yes.
It's a great program.
Yes.
Number 17.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, for this. Just a quick clarification question, going all the way back to the beginning. The 19.1.2 and the 19.1.3, the 10-year investment plan and the marketing initiative, are those primarily just procurement for contracts? And if so, is that just a continuation of the guidehouse work, or would that have to be competitively bid?
We'll probably one of them probably a continuation from the guidehouse work, and then we can look at seeing that's for the 19.1.1, and then we can look at some strategies for 19.1.2 for that 10-year staffing plan.
Thank you.
Yes.
Number 7.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner. How many in the state on the food and the farm, going back to what the Representative Mathis, how many facilities are there in the state?
That have farm operations?
Yes, sir.
You have Arendelle, Washington State Prison, Rogers, Montgomery, Central, 5. There's others that have Smith's Healthcare. You have different manufacturing facilities when it comes to like our tag plant, manufacturing plant, but farm operations is 5.
And as Mr. Chairman stated, that these farming operations provide pretty much the food for the state prison system. You've talked a lot about increase in dollars and increase in beds, knowing of increase in inmates, but you mentioned that a number of the facilities do need some care and taken care of. So is that not a priority to make sure that of taking care of the inmates to provide the food, and the services for that? Because I'm actually looking at scheduling a visit for the Reedsville farm. And some of the research I've done, anytime there's an inmate of rehabilitation, that's the ultimate goal, is to get in there and rehabilitate them back to society.
Absolutely.
And I've heard nothing but great comments on the farm operations, that a number of inmates that goes into the state prison system, a certain percentage may return, but the ones that actually spend time on those farms, it's a less, it's 30% only return or something to that nature. So it's a good rehabilitation program. So I would like to see, maybe some funding to secure and take care of the farming facilities, to provide that food for the inmates.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay, and so far as I can tell, that's the last question.
All right.
No cheers.
Just for clarity's sake, Representative Williams and I have been friends for 50 years, and we both a little bit smart aleck. When this goes on day after day after day, every afternoon we get back together. We don't kiss, but we make up. So
It's gonna be tough today, though.
okay, on to the private
Thank you.
prisons. And thanks for that presentation. I know you're getting tired of this, and this is about 5 times I've heard it, and
Mr. Chairman, I have some handouts. Do you mind if I
Sure.
pass those? Okay.
get on the road here pretty quick. You don't care? Oh, yeah. Well, it thins out a little bit after a while, too, doesn't it? I know my wife and I used to leave on Fridays and go. Thank you.
Y'all don't have enough paper, so I thought I'd add to the stack and the confusion for you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for allowing us to have an opportunity to speak. My name is Jerry Langford with Core Civic. We are one of the private providers, have been in partnership with the state of Georgia for over 25 years now. We have 3 facilities in the state. We have a facility in Coffee County, a facility in Jenkins County, and another facility in Wheeler County. We currently own those facilities and manage about 6,000 beds. I think that is slightly over 10% of the department's overall beds that we manage. So really want to just get into it. I know you all have had a long day. This is the end of the committee meeting, and so I'll just get right into kind of what I put in front of you, what we want to talk about. I did put amended fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26. Can certainly just stick with amended 25, but I know that the department's been talking about a lot of different things across both, so wanted to put both of those on the table. What you will see on the front page is just budget request for both fiscal years. And as I look at it, I really put our request into 3 buckets. Now, for the amended fiscal year 25, those 2 buckets are, one, the 446 beds the commissioner and his team spoke of. That's what was included in the governor's budget. And then the second item there, or what I'd call the second bucket, is contractual increase. And this is basically a quarter of what we're asking for in the big budget, recognizing that once the amended is passed, that would be, I think, approved for the last 3 months of the current fiscal year. So that is also information that we provided to the governor's office, OPB, and I believe the department a few months ago as they were working on putting together their budget. The next item under fiscal year 2026, we have the 446 beds. Now, what I will say is the number is different there, and the reason the number is different is our contracts go year to year with the state of Georgia and with the department. So every June 1st, we renew those contracts with the department. Well, as you know, I have been, I guess, standing before you all for about 10 years now personally. And again, our company's been in partnership for over 25 years and have not gotten a true contractual increase for over 15 years now. And so I don't know what business everyone is in the room, but I would venture to say that no one is charging the same thing today that they were charging 15 years ago. And that is what we've been asked to do year over year over year over year. And we've managed through it. We've tried to be good partners, but it's just gotten to the point where it is extremely difficult to continue to do that. And so that's why we have that increase in front of you. So the 446 bed number that has gone up, we recognize that beginning July 1st, we'll have an opportunity to renew that contract. And as part of that, as part of the increase we're seeking for the service we're providing, we have put some of that into those additional beds. Does that make sense? Okay. The second bucket under fiscal year 26 is pay parity. What we did is our HR team went back, looked at the increases that GDC was giving, and I think also just GDC pay rates across the board. We are very, very appreciative for money we've been given for pay increases over the past couple of years. But as you all know, there have been gaps there. You know, we have not gotten funding for all positions at the facility. We haven't gotten funding for positions that weren't filled at that time. So as you raise pay, people become more interested in the jobs. And so as we fill those positions, that all comes out of pocket. And so I know the governor in his budget, I think, put $2.2 million in there for pay parity. But when we went through and looked at the numbers, 4.1 is what we came up with for true parity. And then that last bucket is, again, the contractual increase that we're seeking because we haven't had an increase for so long. You know, I look at everything the department is requesting, and I will say clearly needed. And it's not just in Georgia. I will tell you, I work in other states as well, and it's unfortunate sometimes corrections isn't always funded. There are a lot of priorities in the state, and we certainly recognize that. And so, you know, glad to see that Commissioner and his team, you know, probably going to get some of the things they need. But I would say that, you know, when we come and invest our capital into the state of Georgia, I know Representative Williams spoke about the car company who came and they built a plant in 18 months. And, well, they did that with their capital. And they did that expecting that, well, there's going to be a certain return on investment. And we're really no different. We've come into Georgia. We've built 3 facilities. We've invested tens of millions in the Georgia Clay. We've invested in the citizens of Georgia. We think that we, you know, provide good jobs, great facilities to work in under the department and their leadership. But we have invested in the state. And, you know, when I look down the list of everything that needs funding, we do everything from replacing roofs to replacing HVAC units to, I mean, you can go down the list. And so the third sheet I provided you all there is just a list over the last 5 years of capital projects we've completed at those 3 facilities. And you can see just over the last 5 years alone, we've spent almost $15 million just to maintain the facilities. And we do that because by contract, we're required to do that. We do that because there are assets we want to make sure we're taking care of. We do that because at the end of the day, it lends to the safety, security of the staffs and the inmates that are under our care. And so, you know, it's not just, you know, us coming and saying, hey, we need money. We'd really, you know, just like some money, it would help out. It is critical because of all that we have to invest in to keep the facilities operational. I'll say, and I should have said this first, on the second page I gave you, and this is something I'll tell you we provided to OPB and the governor's office as well, is just a snapshot of the financials for the 3 facilities we run. And I think I highlighted a box on each of those facilities. If you add up those highlighted boxes on each of the pages for each of the facilities, you'll come up with $9.8 million, which is what we're requesting. And that shows you in detail what our costs are to operate those facilities and the fact that we're underwater at this point. And so it really has just gotten critical, and it's getting to the point where it's just not sustainable anymore. And we've had a great partnership with the department. We appreciate the commissioner's leadership. I look at his team all folks that I've worked with for years and who are honestly the best at what they do. And again, I work with a lot of different states, so I cannot speak highly enough about them. It really doesn't have to do anything with the department. It's just, at the end of the day, it comes down to funding and the fact that we've got to have adequate funding to continue to run the facilities in a safe, secure manner, just as the commissioner and his team have come up here and, you know, talked to you today about the funding they need for, you know, various reasons. So with that, I'll stop. I'm looking at my list. I think I've covered, you know, a lot, but certainly recognize you all may have some questions, so I want to make sure that I'm answering those as well as I can.
And you say you sign a contract every year, and I knew that was the case, but has the state ever reneged on any of their contract or obligations?
So, I'm sorry, sir?
Has the state not fulfilled any of their contract or obligations when you signed it?
No, the state does, and I will tell you that in the contract, in our contracts anyway, I think there's a clause that says, as it relates to an increase, says the state shall provide an increase, I believe, that is in line with CPI, and it's kind of trailing 12 months per appropriation of the legislature. And so, you know, certainly it's not that, you know, the state or the department hasn't fulfilled anything. It's just that that clause has never been, I don't know if honored's the right word, because that would imply that you know, contractually have to, but I think you understand.
Oh, I understand perfectly. And Ms. George and I, when we were discussing corrections the other day, that we brought up the topic, and apparently, as it seems to me, is essentially you hadn't got a cost of living raise in years.
Yes, sir.
Except for salaries.
Yes.
And as you say, there's been some gaps in there.
Yes,
but
sir.
And many of these facilities are located in close proximity to the state prisons too.
Yes, sir.
So if we don't pay the same and treat the employees the same, they walk across the street, go to work for the state, and vice versa. If you pay more than the state, they're going to do the same thing.
Yes, sir.
So it's you know, it's competitive, and we have to fund you if we can. And like I said earlier, when I talked about private prisons, and I asked the commissioner what we're going to do if one of them shuts down. We got to find a place. If they shut down and some of these county camps shut down, I mean, we're gonna put a burden on the prison system that they can't fulfill. So. Vice Chairman?
I'm kind of not quite sure how the private prison works. Do y'all take all inmates, or are there a certain group of inmates, certain type of crime or behavioral disturbance? What does a private, I mean, are you just like the ones that our commissioner was just talking about, or how does that work?
And what I would say is I would defer to the commissioner and his team. They can probably speak more properly to the types of inmates that are at our facility, simply because they work with classification all the time. And so that really is his system to manage. And so there's no doubt we have, you know, some, you know, tough inmates, but I don't want to step out and say exactly who we have compared to other facilities within the department. We really want to defer to the commissioner on that.
So there's just different classifications of what an inmate that you accept, or?
Not necessarily accept. I think it is usually based upon the department and how they decide to manage that inmate population. And as they look at all of the facilities throughout the system, I'm assuming that they look and say, okay, we're comfortable putting this classification of inmate in these facilities and a different classification in another. I will tell you, our facilities, all three, are a mix of dorm and bed. And so in a dormitory style unit, you're probably not going to put some really, really hard close custody guys. Now, in a celled unit, you could more easily manage those individuals. And so because our facilities are a mix of both cell and dorm, the commissioner and his team probably decide, okay, this is how we're going to manage the inmate population there, just as they probably do with their other facilities across the state.
So y'all have measures to take care of an inmate gets out of line, you have measures to take care of him, and y'all handle it yourselves. They're not sent back to the Department of Corrections? I mean, I'm just curious.
Then I would tell you.
I mean, I just want to make sure we're
Yeah.
all on the same
Oh, yeah,
parallel
yeah,
with,
yeah.
with private and the public.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So I will say, one, we have a contract, and so that contract outlines, everything we're supposed to do, and from soup to nuts, from providing clothing to healthcare to food to rec to education. I mean, you go down the list, and so you should walk into our facilities, and generally speaking, it should be very similar, if not identical, to some GDC facilities based upon what we're doing. As far as security, I will tell you, GDC has one or maybe two contract monitors in our facility that work for the state. And again, I would defer to the department, but I think their specific job is to make sure that we're adhering to the terms and conditions of the contract. We're doing things the way the department would expect us to do. Our staff, specifically our correctional officers, they go through the same training academy as GDC correctional officers. So same program, they'll graduate with the same class. Some of the guys and men and women will go to a core civic facility or a private facility, and some will go to a GDC facility. Exact same training.
Okay, so you're asking for more money, which I understand it takes money to operate, but if more money was given, would you take a higher classification of when I say higher classification, I'm talking about more volatile prison. I mean,
what I would say, and I have said this both publicly and privately, I would defer to the commissioner, as I would in any state, honestly, and his team to make that decision. We ultimately fall under his umbrella, even though we're private. We answer to the commissioner and his team, and so as he looks at his system and as he looks at our facility and says, you know what, I think you all can accept this classification of inmate, we would sit down, our operations folks would sit down, I'm not in operations, but they would sit down and work through, okay, what exactly does that look like? I will tell you, in a number of different states, we manage everyone from minimum security to medium to high custody. With the federal government, we have some that they classify as max as well. Now, probably a different type of inmate than you're seeing here in Georgia or maybe some other states, but I just say that to say we do that in different states, but again, it is state to state. Some states may decide, in the private facility, we want this classification of inmate, and we always defer to the department on that, but if they decide they want to have a higher classification, we'll sit down and work through that together with them.
okay, all right. So y'all would work together to figure out, what arrangement you'd have to what type of inmate you would take.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I want to be clear that we're going to defer to the commissioner and his staff to say, hey, this is what we think.
Yeah, just adding a closing remark, I'm gonna sound like Al over here. If people say crime don't pay, well, Lord, it costs a lot to keep folks locked up.
It does.
And it takes a lot of money, all the things that we do. So somebody's getting paid.
Yeah. And I will tell you, interesting comment about the farm operations and rehabilitative. I mean, we believe in that 100%. I think I've said in this committee before, Georgia came to us, I don't know, probably 8 years ago. They wanted to build diesel mechanic and welding facilities to rehabilitate these inmates and really allow them to get out and get a high-paying job. And so we bid on an RFP. Again, we invested millions of dollars in diesel mechanic welding facilities down at Coffee and Wheeler. And I feel like working, with the department and under their leadership, it's been a great program. And hopefully, I think we're actually doing a study right now to see what the recidivism rates are associated with that, to your point, because it is expensive. And the more guys that you can get out and keep out, the better. So we're invested in that as well.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Appreciate
sir.
it.
Yes, sir.
Number 17.
I appreciate that your costs have increased, and thank you for the per facility cost analysis. I'm seeing, if I'm understanding correctly, that most of the increase in cost are substantially the personnel. And I'm seeing that your full-time equivalents have substantially increased, but your average daily population has only marginally increased. I'm curious what the increase in the full-time equivalent positions have been for.
Well, so, you know, as the department, you know, I think spoke earlier about vacancies, we have had vacant positions as well, you know, especially post-COVID, very difficult. So you'll see, you know, populations may have dipped a little bit or remained flat and positions have gone up. That's because post-COVID, there were a lot of vacancies as we came out of COVID. And again, as we were able to give pay increases, we saw the number of full-time employees go up.
Last but not least,
You're a good man. I don't care what your people say about you. Mr. Chairman, what is your turnover rate with your employees? You'll see.
I can get that for you. I don't have that off the top of my head. I think our vacancy rate currently, so the number of vacant positions, I believe is below 25%, but I can get that number for you as well.
So it's below 25%. How is your starting pay in comparison to the state? Is it the same? Is it higher? What is it?
So a lot of the positions, I believe it is the same because the state has given us money, again, for some positions to increase the pay. Now there, I think, are other positions that we did not receive increases for. And so honestly, what we do is we look at the market and try to determine, okay, what do we need to pay in order to fill these positions? So those may be, you know, maintenance positions. They may be teachers. They may be other administrative staff on down the list. And so with some of those, I can't say that we're right on par. We could be lagging a bit. I think that part of the pay parity number that we're looking at there, Mr. Chairman, I think to your point earlier, recognizing that, you know, many of our facilities are just up the road from the departments, we're wanting to make sure, not just for COs, but for everyone, that we're on par with the department. And so per our HR staff, they went and I think looked across the board and wanted to make sure that, you know, we were getting what we needed to, you know, have parity across the board.
How long have you been in Georgia? Core Civic?
Over 10 years.
Over 10 years?
Yes, sir.
I detected, and you present very eloquently and well, but I detected just a tinge of a little tick off in there, and rightfully so. Having been in business myself, you know, I kind of, things go up, and it's one thing, all of your costs have gone up like everybody else's, and you sound like you might be a little disappointed in the Peach State, and I might be on your side. I'm a little disappointed too, because we can't afford to take up the slack on what you will leave if you drop. Yeah. But we certainly got to do you right to keep you now. We can't be the best state to do business and do the rope-a-dope on our businessmen. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate that. And again, you know, I think I say it every year, we have got a great partnership in Georgia. We specifically have a great partnership with GDC. I mean, day to day, it is, and I have said this, it is one of the best partnerships we have across the country, and I mean that. Funding has always been very difficult, and so if I sounded a little bit frustrated, I apologize, but you know, 10 years though, I really have. I've been standing before this committee every year asking for an increase, and haven't gotten one, and it's becoming very difficult at this point.
And as you know full well, it hadn't always been us.
No, sir.
I feel your pain.
Yes, sir. And I appreciate you making that clarification. I do. I really do.
Number 16.
I just didn't want Al to have the last word. When I was at your facility, and it's been about 8 to 10 years ago, is it not true that y'all were also providing post-release counselors to your inmates that was not contractually required, so that you could follow up and that they would have a counselor on the inside to help them navigate after they'd been locked up for years? Because, I mean, technology alone would be a culture shock. Are y'all still doing that?
I believe we're still doing that, and I would say
congratulations.
I
That's
think,
impressive.
I think you know, I'll speak for, you know, Geo as well. I believe they're doing that as well. So, yes, sir.
Thank y'all for doing that.
Yes, sir.
No further questions. We certainly appreciate you coming today.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
And I'm gonna take a chance here. We got 4 minutes left. Is anybody in the audience, a private? Who? Oh, the Geo Group? I'm sorry. Mr. Pratt. I didn't mean to leave you out. I thought he was speaking for both of you, but
Well, he was, and he did quite the eloquent job. Appreciate that, Mr. Langford. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Dave Pratt, I'm contract counsel for the GEO Group. I proudly represented the GEO Group here in the state of Georgia for over a decade. We do stand by our track record as being good partners with the state. Mr. Chairman, Werkheiser, you mentioned the post-release programs that the GEO Group does institute. We have a program called Continuum of Care. Just about when the folks are about to be released, they see counselors on a very regular basis. Once they are released, they have access to our post-release counselors. And that is something that we do above and beyond our contractual obligation. Through our contract or relationship with the state, we spent millions and millions of dollars to make sure that we do everything that we can to make sure that those are entrusted to our care, never to see the inside of a facility again. That's very important to us. And when we try to figure out where to cut to make our contract sustainable, one of the choices that we could make is to reduce programming. That's just not acceptable. We can't. That is our principal mission, to make sure that we properly rehabilitate folks, and we're proud of that.
no questions.
Thank you
Apparently
very
you
much.
did a good job. Short and sweet. Okay, once again, I open it up. We got any member of the, any staff members here or any member of the public that would like to say something? We got 2 minutes left.
Sounds like a funeral response.
Well, I appreciate everybody sitting here through it. We scheduled from 1 to 5, and I thought it would take every minute, and apparently that's the case. So we've accomplished a lot and heard a lot, and now it's up to the committee to determine what we're going to fund and what we're not. And you know, there may be some things outside of what we heard today that we need to fund too. So I appreciate everybody being patient and sticking with us, and thank you. We're adjourned.